My stepmother mocked my little party business at my sister's wedding, but she had no idea. The entire reception was secretly run by my company. Claire, my younger sister, sent me an invitation to her wedding. Yes, that Claire, the golden child, the apple of my father and stepmother's eyes, the one I hadn't spoken to since severing ties with my entire poisonous family. I mean, the audacity, right? 7 years of nothing, no calls, no texts, no, hey, how's life? And now I'm invited to this big, beautiful wedding. It wasn't only the invitation, however. A handwritten message was put inside, in Claire's distinctive handwriting. She wrote that she missed me and wanted to make things right. I stared at it for a long time, wondering whether it was a trick. So, was she serious? After everything that happened, and how they treated me, she wanted me back in the fold. Let me backtrack for context. Our mother died when I was 15 and Claire was 12. It devastated us, as you would guess. But while I was still processing my sadness, my father was out there moving on. He remarried a year later, and Denise, the stepmother from hell, moved in. From the start, she had an implicit objective to obliterate any traces of my mother. Family photos, gone. My mother's favorite decor, packed and thrown away. I was devastated. But Claire clung to Denise as if she were a savior. I could not blame her. She was only a youngster and she needed someone. But I couldn't stand Denise and the way she controlled everything. Things worsened as we grew older. By the time I started college, Dad refused to aid me financially. What's his reasoning? I needed to grow up and take responsibility. Meanwhile, he was showering Claire with everything: college tuition, a fresh new apartment, and even a car, all paid for without hesitation. I was working part-time, just scraping by, and trying to start an event planning firm from scratch. Denise, of course, regarded it as playing around, whereas Claire was the family's shining star, thriving in school, and seemingly deserving of their full support. I eventually had enough. After years of feeling like an outsider in my own family, I severed relations. No spectacular encounter, no major fallout, just silence. I stopped phoning and visiting and concentrated on improving my life. I immersed myself into my work and thrived. My business flourished beyond my wildest dreams, and I reached a point where I didn't need anyone. Not Dad, Denise, or Claire. This leads us back to the wedding invitation. At first, I considered throwing it away. Why should I care? They didn't care about me when I was fighting to get through school, save enough money for groceries, or in need of a family. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity or Claire's note. I couldn't tell if she was sincere, or if this was another one of Denise's ruses. Regardless, I chose to go. If nothing else, I felt I could come up, observe how things unfolded, and leave if things were too uncomfortable. Here's the thing. I wasn't going to go empty-handed. Despite our years of enmity, I still wanted to do something good for Claire. I offered to help her organize her wedding, giving her complete service from my company at a significant discount. She respectfully declined, stating that Denise had already taken care of everything. That stung a little, to be honest. But hey, I'd done my part. I'd extended an olive branch. The ball was in their court. So there I was, preparing for the big day. I knew coming inside that theater would reopen a lot of old wounds, but I told myself it was worth it. Perhaps Claire was sincere. Maybe this was her way of reaching out and making amends. I had low expectations, but I held out hope. The night before the wedding, I couldn't fall asleep. Memories of the past came flooding back. Holidays where I sat on the sidelines while Claire received all of the attention. Talks where Denise belittled me in front of Dad. And moments when I understood I wasn't a part of the family anymore. I persuaded myself it did not matter. I was attending the wedding for Claire, not them. And if things went wrong, I could always go. I had nothing to prove to anybody. The next morning, I dressed in my best suit, got into my car, and drove to the location. I arrived early since that is simply who I am. I'm a planner and always have been. The house was stunning. Lofty ceilings, beautiful flowers, the works. They had obviously spared no expense. As I walked through the doors, I felt a combination of nervousness and dread. This was the first time I had seen my family in nearly a decade. Will they accept me, ignore me, or tear me apart? I had no idea. Claire looked radiant when I spotted her. She approached me, hugged me, and thanked me for coming. For a while I thought, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. But then I saw Denise. She was standing to the side, observing me like a hawk. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and I could see she wasn't pleased I was present. "Welcome," she said, her voice full of phony kindness. "Still running that little party business of yours?" I gritted my teeth and grinned back. It's going well, thanks. She sneered, plainly unimpressed, and shifted her focus to someone else. Denise's style is classic. I shrugged it off and found my seat. The ceremony was lovely, I'll give them that. Claire appeared really joyful, and for a moment, I forgot about the stress. But deep down, I knew the tranquility would not last. It was my family after all. Drama was unavoidable. Walking inside the reception area, I felt a knot in my gut tighten. It wasn't the venue, because let's be honest, it was magnificent. The chandeliers glistened like something out of a magazine. The tables were arranged with fine cutlery, and I could see my reflection. The floral arrangements appeared to have come straight from paradise. No, the knot was not part of the decor, it was inevitable. This was the first time I'd seen my family in almost 7 years, and I knew what was coming. I made my way to the seating chart, scanning the list for my name. When I discovered table 14, the knot in my gut became into a sinking feeling. I didn't need a map to find where that was. Weddings follow a pattern. Immediate family sits at the prime tables, followed by close friends, extended family, then random stragglers. Table 14 was clearly in the "we don't care if you're here" zone. When I arrived, I knew the insult was not subtle. My table mates were distant relatives I scarcely remembered. Aunt Lydia, who frequently mispronounced my name and smelled like mothballs, and Uncle Roger, who spent every family meeting droning on about his coin collection. What about the other 2 people at the table? I wasn't even sure who they were. Meanwhile, I noticed Claire's friends and Denise's family gathered around the dance floor. Dad and Denise were understandably center stage, relishing in their self-proclaimed very important person position. I couldn't help but giggle at myself. This was completely on brand for them. 7 years with no touch, and they still treated me like an afterthought. Fine. I did not come here for the seating arrangement. I came for Claire, or so I told myself. I attempted to maintain my cool. I poured myself a drink of water, looked around the room, and pretended I didn't care. But then the first landmine of the evening stepped right up to my table, Dad, and he was undeniably inebriated. Now I realized it wasn't going to be a pleasant interaction. Dad's drinking isn't nice, it's loud, rude, and entirely improper. True to tradition, he smashed his hand onto the table, making Aunt Lydia jump. "What the hell are you doing here, Leonard?" he mumbled. "You weren't supposed to come." I looked at him shocked. "I got an invitation," I responded calmly. I even took it out of my pocket for verification. "Claire invited me." He snorted. "You should have stayed where you belong. You're just here to embarrass us, aren't you? Showing up with your little party business like it means something." His voice became louder, and I could feel eyes turning toward us. My face blazed with wrath and shame, but I remained silent. Before I could react, Denise was by his side, perfectly timed as always. "Leonard," she asked, her tone mockingly concerned, "do you even make enough to buy that suit, or is it rented?" She gave me a smug look, as if she'd given the punchline of the century. I glanced at her and then back at Dad, realizing there was no point. You can't argue with individuals like them, especially when they're drunk and full of themselves. So, I did the only thing I could. I stood up, adjusted my suit, and said, "Excuse me." I went away without saying another word. But I didn't rush to the door. I wanted to clear my mind first. So I went out to the patio. The cool night air made me feel like I could breathe again. But the noises from inside continued to echo in my ears. Embarrassment. Small party business. God, they couldn't even let me live without destroying me. I leaned on the railing, looking out at the garden, trying to figure out what to do next. Leave without looking back? Go back inside and pretend none of this upset you? Neither option felt appropriate. I was deep in concentration when I heard the music start playing inside, cheerful, lively, and absolutely opposite of how I felt. That's when I knew I couldn't remain. I owed these folks nothing, least of all my time and energy. I made my way back inside, staying toward the room's boundaries to avoid being observed. On my way out, I looked over at the event workers. They were preparing for the following course, arranging plates with such efficiency that I couldn't help but marvel. Something about them seemed familiar. I slowed down, watching them move, and then it hit me. I knew these folks. These were not simply any staff personnel. They were my employees. My thoughts raced. My company had recently bought a smaller event planning company, and it turned out that this wedding was one of their projects. My team did the job, so it's no surprise that the setup looked so flawless. I experienced a peculiar mix of emotions, including pride, surprise, and above all, a developing sense of irony. Claire and Denise had hired my company without even knowing it. Perhaps they were aware of the situation, but chose to ignore it. In any case, the evening's power dynamics had abruptly transformed. And for the first time all night, I felt in control. I moved to the side and took out my phone, dialing my operations manager. When she responded, I spoke quietly. "Hey, quick question," I said. "This wedding, are we running it?" There was a pause followed by, "Yeah." "Why?" I couldn't help laughing. "No reason," I said. "Just wanted to confirm." I hung up the phone and returned my attention to the room. As I stood there, still processing the reality that my team was in charge of the wedding at which I had just been humiliated, a knowledge struck me like a freight train. Everything, the flowers, the lighting, the precisely scheduled dinner service, was handled by my company. Claire and Denise had mistakenly, or perhaps consciously, hired me to make their fantasy wedding come true. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Part of me wanted to storm back inside and declare, "Hey, guess what? All of this, it's mine." But the more calculating part of me knew there was a better way to handle this. After all, Dad and Denise had gone out of their way to disrespect me, treating me as if I did not belong. If they didn't want me there, they certainly didn't deserve the efforts of my staff. I called my operations manager again, my hands trembling not from fear but from adrenaline. "Hey Kate," I said calmly. "Can you confirm the client's contract for tonight?" "Sure, Leonard," she replied, perplexed. "Why?" "I'll explain later. Just tell me, does the contract include the usual termination clause?" Kate didn't even need to look it up. "Yep. Hostile or discriminatory behavior toward staff or management gives us the right to terminate services immediately." "Bingo. Perfect," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. "We're invoking it. Start packing up." There was a pause on her end, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her brain. "Wait, what happened?" she inquired. "Let's just say the client has made it clear they don't want me, or us, here," I responded. "I'll fill you in later. Just trust me on this one." Kate did not hesitate. "Got it. I'll handle it." I hung up, my heart thumping. This was it. If Dad and Denise believed they could treat me like trash while still reaping the benefits of my labor, they were in for an unpleasant surprise. I wasn't doing this out of spite, well, maybe a little, but because it felt right to do. I wasn't going to allow them mistreat me while benefiting from my hard work. It was not personal. It was business. Back inside, the event was in full swing. The music was playing, guests were socializing, and servers were serving the first course. On the surface, everything appeared to be in order, but I knew chaos was on its way. My staff worked like a well-oiled machine, discreetly packing equipment and supplies while maintaining appearances. Guests didn't see anything at first, which speaks to their professionalism. I remained outdoors, watching from the terrace as the plot developed. My workers started pulling down floral arrangements, rolling up tablecloths, and silently emptying up decorations. It was like witnessing a magician make an entire room disappear without anyone noticing. Denise may have been able to mock me, but she could not touch the quality of my work, or my workers. The first indicator of problems occurred when the lighting crew began disassembling the uplights in the room. A few guests saw, pointing and muttering to each other, but no one spoke out yet. Denise, of course, was too busy conducting court at her table to notice what was going on. Dad was nowhere to be found, likely nursing another drink. As more decorations removed, the whispers became louder. Finally, one of the servers approached Denise and said something to her. Her expression changed from smug to furious in a matter of seconds. She rose from her chair and marched across the room, her shoes clicking like gunshots across the marble floor. "What's going on? Why are they taking everything down?" I could hear her say from the patio. The server seemed really afraid. "I don't know, ma'am. You'll have to ask the event manager." That's when she noticed Kate, who was quietly directing the personnel. Denise stormed over, her screaming getting louder with each step. "What is this? What the hell are you doing?" Kate did not flinch. "We're following the terms of the contract, ma'am. Services are being terminated due to hostile behavior toward our management." Denise blinked. "What hostile behavior? Who even is your management?" Kate motioned toward the patio, where I stood. Denise turned, her gaze sharpening as she noticed me. I gave her a little wave and kept my demeanor as bland as possible. She stormed out, her face flushed with wrath. "You," she hissed. "You can't do this." "This is Claire's wedding, and this is my company," I responded calmly. You made it clear earlier that you don't respect me or what I do, so why would you want my services? Her jaw fell. You're doing this to punish me, to ruin Claire's wedding. I shake my head. This isn't about Claire. It's about the way you and Dad treated me. You can't humiliate me and then expect me to provide top-tier service. That's not how this works. Denise stammered, trying to come up with an answer. Kate approached me first and offered me a clipboard. We're ready to roll out, she remarked. Everything's packed? She nodded. Thanks, Kate. Great work, as always. Denise appeared to be about to burst, but I didn't stick around to find out. I handed her my lawyer's card and told her, if you have any questions about the contract, please contact our legal team. Have a great evening. I walked away, leaving her dumbfounded. The aftermath was considerably more chaotic than I expected. By the time my crew arrived, the reception hall was nearly empty. The chandeliers hung from the ceiling, but there were no flowers, tablecloths, or uplights. Guests stood about, puzzled and whispering. Claire appeared to be on the point of tears, and for a single second, I felt horrible. But then I reminded myself that this was not about her. This was about standing up for oneself. The drive home from Claire's wedding should have been enjoyable. I mean, I had just organized one of the most famous mic drops in my life. But, when the taillights of my team's trucks faded from my rearview mirror, I couldn't help but feel conflicted. This was not how I had expected the day would go. Still, I knew I had made the proper decision. For the first time in a long time, I advocated for myself. Not just as a business owner, but as a person. And, while the night did not go as planned, I was not going to let that stop me from moving forward. This was only the beginning. I didn't have much time to think about it though, because the fallout started almost immediately. About 20 minutes into my travel, the first signs of turmoil appeared on my phone. Text messages, missed calls and voicemails poured in. Denise, understandably, led the charge with a series of heated texts. They were long and meandering, full of claims that I had spoiled everything, even Claire's big day, out of spite. Everyone was more spectacular than the last. I can't believe you did this to Claire, she said. You're a selfish, vindictive little boy who can't handle someone else being happy. You ruined this family's reputation. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Oh, she wasn't finished. The texts kept coming, each one more bizarre than the one before it. She accused me of undermining the wedding out of jealousy, called me sad, and even demanded a full refund for the occasion. Yes. Refund. She really believed I should repay her for the services my company had already rendered. My stepmother mocked my little party business at my sister's wedding, but she had no idea. The entire reception was secretly run by my company. Claire, my younger sister, sent me an invitation to her wedding. Yes, that Claire, the golden child, the apple of my father and stepmother's eyes, the one I hadn't spoken to since severing ties with my entire poisonous family. I mean, the audacity, right? 7 years of nothing, no calls, no texts, no, hey, how's life? And now I'm invited to this big, beautiful wedding. It wasn't only the invitation, however. A handwritten message was put inside, in Claire's distinctive handwriting. She wrote that she missed me and wanted to make things right. I stared at it for a long time, wondering whether it was a trick. So, was she serious? After everything that happened, and how they treated me, she wanted me back in the fold. Let me backtrack for context. Our mother died when I was 15 and Claire was 12. It devastated us, as you would guess. But while I was still processing my sadness, my father was out there moving on. He remarried a year later, and Denise, the stepmother from hell, moved in. From the start, she had an implicit objective to obliterate any traces of my mother. Family photos, gone. My mother's favorite decor, packed and thrown away. I was devastated. But Claire clung to Denise as if she were a savior. I could not blame her. She was only a youngster and she needed someone. But I couldn't stand Denise and the way she controlled everything. Things worsened as we grew older. By the time I started college, Dad refused to aid me financially. What's his reasoning? I needed to grow up and take responsibility. Meanwhile, he was showering Claire with everything: college tuition, a fresh new apartment, and even a car, all paid for without hesitation. I was working part-time, just scraping by, and trying to start an event planning firm from scratch. Denise, of course, regarded it as playing around, whereas Claire was the family's shining star, thriving in school, and seemingly deserving of their full support. I eventually had enough. After years of feeling like an outsider in my own family, I severed relations. No spectacular encounter, no major fallout, just silence. I stopped phoning and visiting and concentrated on improving my life. I immersed myself into my work and thrived. My business flourished beyond my wildest dreams, and I reached a point where I didn't need anyone. Not Dad, Denise, or Claire. This leads us back to the wedding invitation. At first, I considered throwing it away. Why should I care? They didn't care about me when I was fighting to get through school, save enough money for groceries, or in need of a family. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity or Claire's note. I couldn't tell if she was sincere, or if this was another one of Denise's ruses. Regardless, I chose to go. If nothing else, I felt I could come up, observe how things unfolded, and leave if things were too uncomfortable. Here's the thing. I wasn't going to go empty-handed. Despite our years of enmity, I still wanted to do something good for Claire. I offered to help her organize her wedding, giving her complete service from my company at a significant discount. She respectfully declined, stating that Denise had already taken care of everything. That stung a little, to be honest. But hey, I'd done my part. I'd extended an olive branch. The ball was in their court. So there I was, preparing for the big day. I knew coming inside that theater would reopen a lot of old wounds, but I told myself it was worth it. Perhaps Claire was sincere. Maybe this was her way of reaching out and making amends. I had low expectations, but I held out hope. The night before the wedding, I couldn't fall asleep. Memories of the past came flooding back. Holidays where I sat on the sidelines while Claire received all of the attention. Talks where Denise belittled me in front of Dad. And moments when I understood I wasn't a part of the family anymore. I persuaded myself it did not matter. I was attending the wedding for Claire, not them. And if things went wrong, I could always go. I had nothing to prove to anybody. The next morning, I dressed in my best suit, got into my car, and drove to the location. I arrived early since that is simply who I am. I'm a planner and always have been. The house was stunning. Lofty ceilings, beautiful flowers, the works. They had obviously spared no expense. As I walked through the doors, I felt a combination of nervousness and dread. This was the first time I had seen my family in nearly a decade. Will they accept me, ignore me, or tear me apart? I had no idea. Claire looked radiant when I spotted her. She approached me, hugged me, and thanked me for coming. For a while I thought, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. But then I saw Denise. She was standing to the side, observing me like a hawk. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and I could see she wasn't pleased I was present. "Welcome," she said, her voice full of phony kindness. "Still running that little party business of yours?" I gritted my teeth and grinned back. "It's going well, thanks." She sneered, plainly unimpressed, and shifted her focus to someone else. Denise's style is classic. I shrugged it off and found my seat. The ceremony was lovely, I'll give them that. Claire appeared really joyful, and for a moment, I forgot about the stress. But deep down, I knew the tranquility would not last. It was my family after all. Drama was unavoidable. Walking inside the reception area, I felt a knot in my gut tighten. It wasn't the venue, because let's be honest, it was magnificent. The chandeliers glistened like something out of a magazine. The tables were arranged with fine cutlery, and I could see my reflection. The floral arrangements appeared to have come straight from paradise. No, the knot was not part of the decor, it was inevitable. This was the first time I'd seen my family in almost 7 years, and I knew what was coming. I made my way to the seating chart, scanning the list for my name. When I discovered table 14, the knot in my gut became into a sinking feeling. I didn't need a map to find where that was. Weddings follow a pattern. Immediate family sits at the prime tables, followed by close friends, extended family, then random stragglers. Table 14 was clearly in the "we don't care if you're here" zone. When I arrived, I knew the insult was not subtle. My table mates were distant relatives I scarcely remembered. Aunt Lydia, who frequently mispronounced my name and smelled like mothballs, and Uncle Roger, who spent every family meeting droning on about his coin collection. What about the other 2 people at the table? I wasn't even sure who they were. Meanwhile, I noticed Claire's friends and Denise's family gathered around the dance floor. Dad and Denise were understandably center stage, relishing in their self-proclaimed very important person position. I couldn't help but giggle at myself. This was completely on brand for them. 7 years with no touch, and they still treated me like an afterthought. Fine. I did not come here for the seating arrangement. I came for Claire, or so I told myself. I attempted to maintain my cool. I poured myself a drink of water, looked around the room, and pretended I didn't care. But then the first landmine of the evening stepped right up to my table, Dad, and he was undeniably inebriated. Now I realized it wasn't going to be a pleasant interaction. Dad's drinking isn't nice, it's loud, rude and entirely improper. True to tradition, he smashed his hand onto the table, making Aunt Lydia jump. "What the hell are you doing here, Leonard?" he mumbled. "You weren't supposed to come." I looked at him shocked. "I got an invitation," I responded calmly. I even took it out of my pocket for verification. "Claire invited me." He snorted. "You should have stayed where you belong. You're just here to embarrass us, aren't you? Showing up with your little party business like it means something." His voice became louder, and I could feel eyes turning toward us. My face blazed with wrath and shame, but I remained silent. Before I could react, Denise was by his side, perfectly timed as always. "Leonard," she asked, her tone mockingly concerned, "do you even make enough to buy that suit, or is it rented?" She gave me a smug look, as if she'd given the punchline of the century. I glanced at her and then back at Dad, realizing there was no point. You can't argue with individuals like them, especially when they're drunk and full of themselves. So, I did the only thing I could. I stood up, adjusted my suit and said, "Excuse me." I went away without saying another word. But I didn't rush to the door. I wanted to clear my mind first. So I went out to the patio. The cool night air made me feel like I could breathe again. But the noises from inside continued to echo in my ears. Embarrassment. Small party business. God, they couldn't even let me live without destroying me. I leaned on the railing, looking out at the garden, trying to figure out what to do next. Leave without looking back? Go back inside and pretend none of this upset you? Neither option felt appropriate. I was deep in concentration when I heard the music start playing inside, cheerful, lively, and absolutely opposite of how I felt. That's when I knew I couldn't remain. I owed these folks nothing, least of all my time and energy. I made my way back inside, staying toward the room's boundaries to avoid being observed. On my way out, I looked over at the event workers. They were preparing for the following course, arranging plates with such efficiency that I couldn't help but marvel. Something about them seemed familiar. I slowed down, watching them move, and then it hit me. I knew these folks. These were not simply any staff personnel. They were my employees. My thoughts raced. My company had recently bought a smaller event planning company, and it turned out that this wedding was one of their projects. My team did the job, so it's no surprise that the setup looked so flawless. I experienced a peculiar mix of emotions, including pride, surprise, and above all, a developing sense of irony. Claire and Denise had hired my company without even knowing it. Perhaps they were aware of the situation, but chose to ignore it. In any case, the evening's power dynamics had abruptly transformed. And for the first time all night, I felt in control. I moved to the side and took out my phone, dialing my operations manager. When she responded, I spoke quietly. "Hey, quick question," I said. "This wedding, are we running it?" There was a pause followed by, "Yeah." "Why?" I couldn't help laughing. "No reason," I said. "Just wanted to confirm." I hung up the phone and returned my attention to the room. As I stood there, still processing the reality that my team was in charge of the wedding at which I had just been humiliated, a knowledge struck me like a freight train. Everything, the flowers, the lighting, the precisely scheduled dinner service, was handled by my company. Claire and Denise had mistakenly, or perhaps consciously, hired me to make their fantasy wedding come true. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Part of me wanted to storm back inside and declare, "Hey, guess what? All of this, it's mine." But the more calculating part of me knew there was a better way to handle this. After all, Dad and Denise had gone out of their way to disrespect me, treating me as if I did not belong. If they didn't want me there, they certainly didn't deserve the efforts of my staff. I called my operations manager again, my hands trembling not from fear but from adrenaline. "Hey Kate," I said calmly. "Can you confirm the client's contract for tonight?" "Sure, Leonard," she replied, perplexed. "Why?" "I'll explain later. Just tell me, does the contract include the usual termination clause?" Kate didn't even need to look it up. "Yep. Hostile or discriminatory behavior toward staff or management gives us the right to terminate services immediately." "Bingo. Perfect," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. "We're invoking it. Start packing up." There was a pause on her end, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her brain. "Wait, what happened?" she inquired. "Let's just say the client has made it clear they don't want me, or us, here," I responded. "I'll fill you in later. Just trust me on this one." Kate did not hesitate. Got it. I'll handle it. I hung up, my heart thumping. This was it. If Dad and Denise believed they could treat me like trash while still reaping the benefits of my labor, they were in for an unpleasant surprise. I wasn't doing this out of spite. Well, maybe a little. But because it felt right to do. I wasn't going to allow them mistreat me while benefiting from my hard work. It was not personal. It was business. Back inside, the event was in full swing. The music was playing, guests were socializing, and servers were serving the first course. On the surface, everything appeared to be in order, but I knew chaos was on its way. My staff worked like a well-oiled machine, discreetly packing equipment and supplies while maintaining appearances. Guests didn't see anything at first, which speaks to their professionalism. I remained outdoors, watching from the terrace as the plot developed. My workers started pulling down floral arrangements, rolling up tablecloths, and silently emptying up decorations. It was like witnessing a magician make an entire room disappear without anyone noticing. Denise may have been able to mock me, but she could not touch the quality of my work, or my wife mocked me as another child instead of a husband, in front of her CEO. 6 months later, my designs replaced her entire career. I'm a 34-year-old male who has been working in IT support for the past 8 years. It's nothing extraordinary, but it covers the expenses. I met my wife Clara, a 32-year-old woman in college, when I was on track for something better. According to my lecturers, I aspired to be an architect and possessed a natural design ability. But life happens, as you know. Clara was an ambitious marketing major who was always talking about moving up the corporate ladder. When we graduated, she got an entry-level work at BlackRock's K-Market, a fashionable company with exposed brick walls and kombucha on tap, while I took a temporary IT job to support us while she built her career. Somehow, temporary became 8 years of my life. I'm not complaining, at least not back then. I assumed we were a team. She'd always assure me, once I make senior account manager, we can focus on your career goals. But that promotion came and went, as did the next, and my dreams were put back until maybe next year. I was making decent money, but it was little compared to what she was earning once she started rising up, and she never forgot it. Our apartment was filled with everything she selected. My gaming PC was banished to a small part of the spare bedroom she referred to as her home office, despite the fact that she rarely utilized it. When I attempted to hang some of my old college architectural sketches, she said they didn't fit our aesthetic and replaced them with generic abstract art from an exorbitant downtown store. So I'm standing there, fixing my tie for the 6th time in our bathroom mirror, preparing for Clara's annual office party. This wasn't just any party, it was the first since her promotion to Director of Client Relations. My stomach was knotted. These corporate experiences always made me feel like an imposter. "Oliver, are you seriously still getting ready?" she asked from the bedroom, with that slight edge in her voice that made me feel about 2 inches taller. "We can't be late. Richard Billings will be there, he's the CEO. Remember, I've told you like 1,000 times." "Almost done," I said, smoothing down my new suit, which I had spent $800 on just so she wouldn't give me that look she usually gave me when I wore my old one, "my husband is such a project" look she'd send to her friends when she thought I didn't notice. She kept guiding me like I was a child during the drive. "Remember to mention your project management certifications if anyone asks what you do. And please, try to be more assertive than last time. You just stood in the corner like a statue." Each suggestion felt like a tiny paper cut. Small but terrible. "And don't bring up that Star Wars crap you're always talking about. Nobody cares about your theories on whatever those wizard people are called." "Jedi," I amended instantly, but I quickly regretted it when I saw her roll her eyes. "Whatever, just try to seem interested in marketing for once." I just nodded and promised to make her proud as always, but something inside was already changing. I was so tired of being a supporting character in the Clara show. The event was held at a luxury downtown hotel, complete with glass and modern art, and the attendees appeared to have never eaten fast food before. I recognized a few individuals from past gatherings, but I largely felt like an outsider, as if I were wearing a costume for a play I had never auditioned for. Clara instantly noticed her colleagues and drew me along, her hand clutching my elbow so tightly that I thought it could bruise. "There's Kevin's group from marketing," she said quietly. "Let me do most of the talking. Just smile and nod." Things went well at first. I smiled when I was meant to, laughed at inside jokes that I didn't get, and kept her sparkling water glass full. Clara's claws dug deeper into my arm as her employer Thomas approached, accompanied by Richard Billings, CEO. "Your quarterly numbers were exceptional," Richard told Clara. "We need more of that killer instinct in the company. The way you handled the Miller account. Brilliant. She was beaming as if someone had just given her $1 million. Thank you, sir. I believe women need to push boundaries in this industry. We can't let the old boys club hold us back. She tossed in the feminist angle she usually used with her supervisors, even if at home she'd have me kill the spiders and take out the trash since those were man jobs. The talk then switched to a rock climbing excursion that the corporation had organized. Clara was one of several CEOs who took part. Your wife was fearless on that cliff face, I heard Thomas say. What about you? Do you share her adventurous spirit? Clara gave out a phony laugh, as she often did when she wanted to impress someone. Oliver? Oh God, he gets vertigo standing on a stepladder. I'm definitely the risk taker in our marriage. He's more of a support person. A few giggles echoed throughout the group, but I felt my face burn with humiliation. The CEO smiled cordially. Nothing wrong with being cautious. Different strengths and all that. But Clara was not done. It's beyond caution, she said, unaware to how uncomfortable I felt. Remember when we had that mouse in the apartment last month? She pantomimed shivering, and everyone laughed even harder. He stood on the kitchen table screaming until I got home to deal with it. I took a large swallow of my sparkling water, wishing I could simply disappear. That is not even how it happened. I was frightened by the mouse and jumped, but her interpretation made me sound miserable. And when we go camping, she said, he won't sleep without an air mattress and insists on staying at sites with full bathroom facilities. Not exactly the rugged outdoorsman. She looked around at her coworkers. I swear sometimes it's like having another child instead of a husband. But he's so good with computers. She stroked my arm condescendingly. Richard's expression changed. His gaze went to me with what appeared to be sympathy. Thomas cleared his throat, clearly knowing that the conversation had gone too far. Actually, Thomas replied, I was talking with Oliver earlier about his architectural hobby. Those 3D designs he showed me were impressive. I had not disclosed my architectural hobby. I had no idea Thomas knew my name until that moment. But I realized he was attempting to save me, and I felt a strange connection to this guy I barely knew. Clara appeared confused. Architecture. He doesn't. Perhaps you could send me some of those renderings, Thomas said calmly, cutting her off. I've been thinking about redesigning my lake house. The subject shifted to vacation cottages, but the harm was done. I stood there, as if my soul had escaped my body. I was just an empty suit, nodding and smiling, but inside I was screaming. I'd spent the last 8 years of my life supporting this lady, and she couldn't even show me basic courtesy in front of her co-workers. For what? So she might appear more spectacular in comparison. The toughest part was that I knew she'd expect me to laugh about it afterwards. Oh, don't be too sensitive. I was just playing around. I excused myself to seek some fresh air, heading out to this large balcony where the cool night breeze did nothing to alleviate the burning embarrassment within me. I stood there, staring at the city lights below, and suddenly everything became obvious. The lady I married had just used me as a punchline to promote her personal image at work, and this wasn't the first time. Years of little comments and subtle put-downs had suddenly crystallized into this terrible pattern that I'd ignored. I wasn't just the target of tonight's jokes, I was also the designated loser in the story she had created about our relationship. Gets old, doesn't it? I turned to see Thomas standing in the doorway, holding 2 bottles of sparkling water. He extended one to me. Thought you might need this? I agreed with a nod, grateful for both the alcohol and his lack of sympathy. Thank you, and thanks for the imaginary architectural hobby. He leaned against the railing beside me. My ex-wife did the same thing at every company event, made me the punchline to all her stories. Dave can't cook to save his life. Dave got lost driving to his mother's house. Dave couldn't figure out how to use the washing machine. He sipped his water. After our divorce, I found out she'd been seeing her personal trainer for 6 months. Best thing that ever happened to me. We stood silently for a moment. Listen, he replied at last. I don't know you well, but I recognize self-respect walking out of a room. That takes more courage than impressing a bunch of corporate drones who will forget about this party by Monday morning. I didn't know how to answer, so I simply nodded. For what it's worth, he went on. I've been in this business 20 years. The people who last aren't the ones who build themselves up by tearing others down. That strategy always backfires eventually. The water was swirling. And between us, Clara's promotion isn't as solid as she thinks. Richard's been asking questions about that Miller account. I stared at him with amazement. What do you mean? Thomas shakes his head. Just that the numbers don't quite add up. Nothing I can discuss in detail. He drifted off and changed the subject. So, did you really study architecture? I nodded. Yeah, back in college. Had to drop out my senior year when my dad got sick. Medical bills wiped out the college fund. I was going to go back, but then Clara's career took off, and it just never seemed like the right time. Thomas nodded attentively. Funny how we put our dreams on hold, thinking it's temporary, and then wake up one day to realize years have passed. Yeah, I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. Funny. The balcony door opened, and Clara appeared. She was visibly annoyed, but she tried to cover it with a phony smile. There you are. Everyone's wondering where you went. Her gaze shifted between me and Thomas, narrowing slightly. Is everything okay? Just getting some fresh air and having a fascinating conversation, Thomas said before I could respond. Oliver was telling me about his background in architectural design. Really innovative perspectives. Another imaginary interest, but this one seemed different. Less like a rescue, more like potential. We should get back inside, she remarked to me, her grin barely reaching her eyes. Richard's wife was asking about you. Actually, I continued, finally finding my voice. I think I'm going to head home. Her smile disappeared. What? You can't leave now. We've only been here 2 hours. I'm not feeling well. It wasn't completely false, my stomach had been churning since her performance inside. Don't be ridiculous, she muttered, moving closer and lowering her voice. This is important for my career, you can manage a few more hours. Stop being so sensitive. Thomas cleared his throat. Perhaps I should give you two a moment, he replied, but did not move to leave. No need, I said, putting down my water bottle. I ordered an Uber, and it should arrive any minute. I hadn't, but I would as soon as I went downstairs. This is so typical, Clara whispered, her voice sharp enough to break glass. The one time I need you to be supportive, you're running away because your feelings got hurt. I swear, men are so fragile sometimes. Something inside of me moved, and a quiet assurance replaced the confusion and hurt. I straightened my shoulders, and gazed directly at Clara. I've supported you through 3 promotions, 2 career changes, and countless late nights at the office. I've attended every function, remembered every colleague's name, and never once complained about being left alone at holidays when you had to work. I put my own dreams on hold for 8 years while you built your career. I took a breath. But tonight you didn't ask for my support. You used me as a prop to make yourself look better. Her cheeks reddened. You're overreacting. It was just harmless joking around. Was it? I inquired quietly. Because from where I'm standing, it felt like you were telling everyone that your biggest accomplishment was succeeding, despite being married to such a pathetic loser. Her gaze faltered and fell to the floor, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Uncertainty disguised as confidence, fear veiled as ambition. I'm going home, I said gently this time. We can talk tomorrow. As I turned to leave, Thomas extended a hand. Good meeting you properly, Oliver. Hope you feel better soon. I shook his hand, shocked by the firm grip and the business card he effortlessly presented to me. Call me if you'd like to grab coffee sometime, he said. I mean it about those designs. When I returned, the apartment was quiet. I removed my suit, the expensive costume I'd worn to blend in with her world, and stood in the shower until the hot water ran cold, allowing it to wash away the humiliation of the evening. Sleep did not come easily. I lay there, remembering years of subtle slights. The way she'd stop me while I was talking about something I was interested in, the way she rolled her eyes when I suggested vacation plans, and the constant minor adjustments she wanted to make to my look, speech, and hobbies. For example, when I spent months building a custom gaming PC and finally got it running perfectly, she said, "That's nice, honey. Maybe now you can focus on something productive." Similarly, when I excitedly showed her a sketch I'd drawn of our dream house, she said, "It's cute that you still think about that stuff." Morning brought insight rather than reconciliation. Clara hadn't arrived home. I received a text message at 6 a.m., told me she'd stayed at Jen's house because she didn't want to continue the debate while emotional. Translation, she was avoiding the repercussions of her behavior. I called in ill to work, which I rarely did, and spent the day in a strange limbo between fury and possibility. I took out my old architectural sketches from college, which Clara had deemed not matching our aesthetic, and set them out on the dining table. They weren't too bad, especially the urban regeneration project, which had earned me departmental acclaim. By afternoon, I was staring at the business card Thomas had given me. After an hour of deliberation, I eventually texted, "This is Oliver from last night. I'll take you up on that coffee offer, if it still stands." His response was quick. "Good to hear from you." 3 p.m. at Steel Bean downtown. The coffee shop was expensive, but not pretentious. Thomas was already sitting in a corner booth when I arrived, dressed casually in trousers and a button-down. "Thanks for meeting me," I murmured, taking the seat across from him. "Though I should probably confess, I've never shown you any architectural designs." He laughed. "I figured as much. But I wasn't entirely making it up. Clara mentioned once that you studied architecture in college. Said it was cute that you thought you could make it in that field." That stung. I never said it was cute when she failed her first 2 marketing jobs. "Yeah, well, it was more than cute to me," I answered, taking out my phone and showing him photographs of my old college projects before leaving the flat. I was on track for internships at some decent firms before life happened. Thomas raised his eyebrows as he browsed through the photographs. "These are actually good. Really good. The spatial awareness, the integration with the surrounding environment. You had a genuine talent." The talk moved with unexpected ease. He wasn't simply being courteous or feeling sorry for me, he actually cared about who I was. As we talked, I found myself disclosing things I'd kept hidden. My abandoned passion for architectural design, the small company plan I'd shelved when Clara's career took precedence, and my growing sense of having lost myself in the shadow of her success. "So all this time you've just been putting your dreams aside while supporting hers?" Thomas was curious. "I guess I thought that's what marriage was," I said. "Compromise. Sacrifice. I figured my turn would come eventually." "Compromise should go both ways," Thomas explained. "When was the last time she sacrificed something for your dreams?" I couldn't respond because the truth was that she never had. "Why did you really ask me here?" I finally said, after a second coffee. "Corporate loyalty would suggest you should be taking her side." He pondered about this, tapping his fingers on the table. "Corporate loyalty is overrated, human decency isn't. What I saw last night wasn't someone building up a team, it was someone stepping on another person to appear taller." He raised his eyebrows. "Plus, I recognize something in you that reminded me of myself 15 years ago. Sometimes people need a nudge to remember who they are." Before we separated, he made an unexpected proposal. "My team's working on a new downtown development project, mixed-use building with residential and commercial space. Given your background in architecture, would you be interested in reviewing some of the preliminary designs? Fresh eyes can spot things we've missed, and it might be therapeutic." I was stunned. I don't have any professional qualifications, my design experience is theoretical at best. Sometimes theoretical is exactly what we need. No pressure, just take a look and give me your honest thoughts. He slid a thumb drive across the table. "Use a new email address to send feedback. This is under the radar. I don't need Clara knowing I'm consulting with her husband." That evening, after Clara returned with a well-scripted apology that included terms like work stress and don't mean to embarrass you, but never recognized what she'd done, I sat down at my long-neglected desk and plugged in the drive. The ideas were ambitious, combining modern and historical features to revive a neglected part of downtown. I lost myself for hours studying representations, taking notes, and sketching possibilities. For the first time in years, I felt my mind totally engaged, with neurons sparking with previously latent creative force. Clara entered our home office, hesitating uncertainly at the threshold, and I scarcely noticed. "What are you working on so intently?" she inquired, her tone perfectly neutral. I did not glance up. "Just a project." She moved closer, attempting to see the screen. "Work project? Since when does IT support need architectural renderings?" I closed the laptop, sensing a strange new wall between us. "It's personal." Her face showed confusion, then anxiety. "Personal? What does that mean?" Her gaze tightened. "Are you talking to someone else?" The connotation was obvious. In her opinion, the only personal project I could pursue would be an affair. She couldn't believe I had autonomous interests or aspirations. "I'm looking into some possibilities," I said vaguely, loving the fact that for once, I was the one holding the information she sought. She hovered for another minute, obviously expecting me to elaborate, but I remained silent. Finally she retreated, and I understood something had fundamentally changed. The apartment seemed different. Not because she had returned, but because I had changed since leaving for the party 2 nights ago. I reopened my laptop and started writing an email to Thomas, signing it with my name followed by architectural consultant. The title was aspirational rather than factual, but for the first time in years, the difference between the two did not appear insurmountable. 2 weeks passed in an unusual new domestic rhythm. Clara walked on eggshells around me, overcompensating with forced cheerfulness and an unexpected interest in my day. I remained cordial but distant, spending my evenings concentrating on the development project rather than watching meaningless television with her. The email I wrote to Thomas sparked a flurry of responses, with the design team expressing real interest in my proposals. What started as a courtesy evaluation turned into serious conversation, with some of my suggestions incorporated into the amended plans. He texted me one morning that they were executing your courtyard plan. The team wishes to meet the mystery consultant. 1 p.m. tomorrow. I stared at the message, equally excited and afraid. This wasn't just a soothing distraction, it was becoming real. I'm not qualified for an actual meeting, I responded. His response was immediate. Neither were half the successful people I know when they began. 1 p.m., at the office, business casual. I will meet you in the lobby. That evening, I casually remarked to Clara that I had lunch plans downtown the next day. Oh? With whom? She attempted to seem intrigued, but I detected a keen edge of distrust. A potential client, I responded, not quite lying but without mentioning that her employer was my contact. A client for what? She inquired, putting down her fork. I looked up from my plate. I'm exploring some consulting opportunities in architectural design. Her fork paused halfway into her mouth. Since when are you interested in architecture and what kind of consulting? You don't have certifications. I've always been interested in architecture, I explained quietly. We talked about it when we first met. I showed you my sketches. That was a hobby, she remarked. You can't just suddenly decide to call yourself a consultant. Actually, you can, I quipped, especially when people value your input. I shut my laptop and stood up. I need to prepare for tomorrow. As I walked away, I could feel her staring at my back, attempting to understand this new version of her husband, one with interests and objectives other than supporting her profession. The next morning, I dressed in my best business casual outfit, not the suit she'd chosen for me, but clothes I felt good in. As I was about to go, Clara arrived in the doorway. Who exactly are you meeting with? She inquired, no longer concealing her suspicion. A development team is interested in my design perspective, I said, reaching for my portfolio, which I had spent the entire night putting together, complete with old college work and new ideas for the downtown project. This doesn't make any sense, she insisted. You work in IT. You've always worked in IT. I worked in IT to support us while you built your career, I corrected her. But that was never my passion. You knew that. As I walked towards the door, she yelled after me. Is this about the party? Are you trying to punish me? I halted with my hand on the doorknob. Not everything is about you, Clara. This is about me reclaiming something I lost. The corporate headquarters was intimidating. 60 stories of dazzling glass and steel. I straightened my blazer in the foyer, doubting my sanity for consenting to this appointment. What was I thinking when I pretended to be a professional in a world where I didn't fit in? Thomas arrived on time, greeting me with a solid handshake. Ready to impress some people? The meeting room included 5 persons, all dressed in that modest, expensive way that denoted serious achievement. My hands were clammy as I was introduced simply as the consultant who solved our courtyard challenge. Walk us through your thinking, a gray-haired woman asked, gesturing at the graphics shown on the wall. I took a big breath and began detailing the flaws I'd identified with the original design, such as shadowing at certain times of day, the wind tunnel effect caused by the building orientation, and the missed potential for green space that would have increased property prices and tenant happiness. As I spoke, my voice became more steady. I received queries, drew alternatives on the digital whiteboard, and got into a heated debate about the benefits of different materials. For 90 minutes, I forgot to feel intimidated. I forgot I was not formally qualified. I simply lost myself in the sheer pleasure of creative problem solving. After the meeting, the gray-haired woman approached me immediately, revealing herself to be the firm's senior partner. Your perspective is refreshing, she replied. Most consultants tell us what we want to hear, but you told us what we needed to know. She offered me her card. We have another project breaking ground in 3 months. Would you be interested in a more formal arrangement? I felt dizzy with possibilities. I would need to think about it, of course. But don't think too long, she said with a knowing smile. Talent doesn't need credentials to be valuable. Clara arrived home from work earlier than normal that evening, and I was going over the meeting notes. Something about her behavior appeared off. A peculiar combination of rage and anxiety that aroused instant concerns. "How was your meeting?" she said, her tone tense. "Productive," I answered cautiously. "Why?" "Imagine my surprise," she began, throwing her bag to the counter with a thud, "when I was called into Richard's office today to explain why my husband is suddenly consulting on the downtown project with my supervisor." And there it was, the decisive moment. "I didn't realize I needed your permission to pursue professional opportunities," I added softly. "Don't play dumb, Oliver. You deliberately kept this from me. Do you have any idea how this makes me look? Like I can't keep my own husband in line." "Keep me in line." The words struck me like a blow. "Is that how you see our marriage? That I'm someone you need to keep in line?" "You know what I mean," she backed away. "It just looks weird. People are talking about, what? That your husband might have talent and value outside of being your supportive spouse? That's not fair," she complained. "I've always supported your interests." "My interests," I reiterated. "Not my career, not my ambitions. My cute little hobbies that you could pat me on the head for." She threw up her hands. "What do you want from me?" I said I was sorry about the party. I had too much sparkling wine. I was trying to impress Richard. I went too far. What more do you want? "I want you to understand that this isn't about the party," I told you. "The party just showed me clearly what I'd been ignoring. We built a relationship where your dreams were the priority, and mine were the sacrifice. I accepted that arrangement for so long that I almost forgot I had dreams of my own." She reached for my hand, but I took a step back, needing physical space to retain emotional clarity. "What exactly are you doing with this project?" she inquired, her voice lowering. "Consulting on architectural elements of a downtown development, and they've asked me to consider a formal arrangement for future projects." Her eyes expanded. "You're not qualified. You never finished your degree. Apparently talent and insight matter more than credentials to some people." Her tone changed, becoming accusing once more. "And Thomas arranged all this? Why would he do that?" I shrugged. Maybe he recognized something in me. Maybe he just wanted to help. Or maybe he saw how I was treated and decided I deserved better. She flinched, like if I had hit her. "So this is about punishing me. Embarrassing me professionally as revenge." "Not everything is about you," I explained quietly. "This is about me rebuilding something I lost. It has nothing to do with revenge." Her rage reappeared. "You've been lying to me for weeks while meeting with my employer. How am I supposed to interpret this?" "I did not lie. I simply did not provide information that you had not requested. When was the last time you asked about my day, interests and goals? Not what you needed from me or how I might help you, only who I am and what I desire." She opened her lips to answer, but closed it again, as awareness dawned in her eyes. The following few days were stressful. Clara oscillated between faux supportiveness and passive-aggressive comments about my unexpected job move, but something greater was forming. I could feel it in the way she furiously texted over dinner or took whispered phone conversations in the restroom. One morning, approximately a week after my meeting with the design team, I received an urgent text from Thomas. "We need to chat immediately, not over the phone." We met at a quiet cafe far from Clara's workplace, and Thomas appeared depressed. "Clara's trying to sabotage you," he blurted out. "She's filed a formal complaint with HR, claiming I've engaged in inappropriate professional relationships by hiring her spouse without disclosure." My stomach plummeted. Can she do that? Technically, there is no rule against hiring employees' spouses for consultancy work. But she's framing it as a conflict of interest, implying that we only hired you to win favor with her over the Miller account. "That's ridiculous," I responded, feeling betrayed yet again. "She knows that's not true." "Of course that's not true. But she is desperate. The Miller account numbers, the ones we've been questioning, Clara's been manipulating the data to make her results look better. There's something else you should know." He hesitated. "Nothing illegal, but clearly against company policy. Richard had previously planned to audit her work next month, and now she is attempting to defame you before that happens." I took note. "Make it look like I'm the one with professional ethics issues." Thomas nodded grimly. Exactly. What can I do? I asked. We need proof that your hiring was solely based on merit. Your original email criticizing our design, did you send it from a personal account that Clara does not have access to? I replied. I created a new account like you suggested. Good. And your design suggestions were made before you knew about the Miller account audit? I didn't even know about the Miller account issues until today, I told you. Thomas was relieved. That helps. But there's another issue. Clara claims you've been exploiting insider information she brought home to gain an advantage on the project. I felt terrible. She's the one who never discusses work at home, except to brag. I had no idea about this project until you showed me. I believe you. But we have to prove it. I thought for a moment. She keeps a personal journal. Every night she writes down all of her professional accomplishments and strategies. If she has been changing data, it might be in there. Thomas scowled. I can't ask you to invade your wife's privacy. It's my apartment too, I insisted. And if she's trying to destroy my one chance at rebuilding my career just to protect her lies, I think I have a right to defend myself. That night, while Clara was at her emergency yoga session, which I now thought was a strategy meeting with her allies at work, I discovered her journal concealed in her underwear drawer. When I opened it, I felt a tinge of guilt, but that quickly faded as I began to read. It was all there. Her deliberate manipulation of the Miller account data, her strategy to keep Oliver focused on my career by disparaging his architectural hobby, and most damning of all, entries from the previous week plotting to discredit Thomas before he could expose her lies. She wrote, Thomas thinks he's so clever using Oliver against me, but I'll make sure they both regret it. I took images of the pertinent pages, my hands shaking with rage and betrayal. This wasn't just about the party. It was about years of purposefully suppressing my dreams in order to retain me as her loyal sidekick. The next morning, I texted Thomas the images with a simple message. Do what you need to do. 2 days later, Clara returned home in tears, her face blotchy from fury and embarrassment. You bastard! She screamed as soon as she saw me. You looked through my private notebook. You handed Thomas my personal writings. Do you have any idea what you did? I stayed calm, saying, I know exactly what I did. I fought myself against your attempts to undermine my career, just as you have done for years. They have suspended me, she screamed. Pending a thorough review of the Miller account. My reputation is ruined. What is your reputation? I laughed bitterly. You mean the reputation you earned by lying about your accomplishments and treading on others? What about that reputation? She dropped onto the sofa, abruptly shifting tactics, and tears streamed down her cheeks as she stared up at me with those deceptive eyes I used to find appealing. Oliver, please, she cried. You must assist me. Tell them you misunderstood. Tell them I never intended to harm your career. You realize how essential this work is to me. To us? I corrected. It was always essential to you. And you were determined to sacrifice my one hope of returning my passion to defend your falsehoods. I can solve this, she said. And I will tell everyone how proud I am of your architectural work. I will fully support your job change. We can get past this. I sat opposite from her, immediately filled with pity. Clara, do you even hear yourself? Even now, you are only offering to help me because you need something. That is not how partnerships work. What are you saying? She muttered, her eyes filled with dread rather than manipulation. I'm saying I'm finished being your supporting character. I have accepted a formal consulting role with the downtown development. I start next week. What about us? She inquired, her voice small. There is no we anymore, I replied gently, and I have already packed my things. I'm staying with a friend until I can find my own place. You cannot just leave, she cried, desperate. We can work this out. I will go to treatment. I will do whatever it takes. I shook my head. I've spent 8 years hoping you'd see me as an equal partner with my own goals. You had to face the repercussions of your conduct before you could provide that. And only because you needed my support. That is not love, Clara. That is just self-preservation. Her expression stiffened, the veneer of vulnerability falling away. Fine, leave. But don't think it's over. I still have friends at the company. They'll see through the lies Thomas told them. They're not lies if they're backed up by evidence, I reminded her. In your own handwriting. She jumped up, her eyes burning. Do you think this makes you some kind of man? Sneaking around behind my back, rummaging through my personal items. You are nothing without me. Nothing. Who do you think paid for most of this apartment? Who kept us afloat when your pathetic IT job had layoffs 3 years ago? I picked up my duffel bag, strangely cool in the face of her fury. I guess we'll find out who I am without you. That's what scares you the most, isn't it? The idea that I might actually succeed on my own. As I approached the door, she called after me, her voice suddenly smaller. Oliver, please, I love you. I hesitated, feeling an odd combination of sadness and freedom. I think you love the idea of me, the supportive husband who never challenges your spotlight. But that person doesn't exist anymore. The door closed behind me with a quiet click that felt more definitive than any slam could have. It's been 6 months since I left that flat and my former life. The downtown project is almost finished, with my courtyard design becoming one of the development's distinctive features. I've been engaged as a full consultant for 2 additional projects, and I'm taking night classes to finish my architectural degree. I wish I could say the change went smoothly, but Clara did not go down without a fight. She tried to turn mutual friends against me by telling them about how I abandoned her over a little job issue. She even stopped by my new flat once, oscillating between tears and threats. But the strangest part occurred 3 months after our split, when the company's inquiry was completed. Clara was dismissed for data manipulation, and on her way out, she appeared to have a total meltdown in the foyer. According to Thomas, who observed the entire incident, she yelled that everyone would be sorry if she disclosed the truth about the conspiracy against her. 2 days later, I got this desperate email from her. Oliver, I need your help. They have ruined my credibility in the industry. Nobody will hire me. I realize I made faults, but I did not deserve this. You understand how hard I worked. Please inform Thomas that I've learned my lesson. Tell them that I deserve a second opportunity. Without my career, I have nothing. Please. I did not respond. After 8 years of putting her needs first, I was finally able to focus on my own journey. A common friend informed me last week that Clara had to return to her parents' home in Ohio. Her LinkedIn profile now displays her as a marketing consultant, which typically indicates that she is unemployed. Meanwhile, the senior partner at Thomas's firm has volunteered to sponsor me for an accelerated architecture program that will allow me to complete my qualifications in a year. I sometimes feel guilty about how things ended. I never wanted vengeance. All I wanted was respect and the opportunity to follow my own aspirations. But then I remember all those years of subtle insults, the humiliation at the party, and her readiness to ruin my potential in order to preserve herself. The guilt disappears rapidly after that. The greatest vengeance wasn't exposing her falsehoods or watching her career crumble. It was about recovering my own potential, a part of myself that I had almost forgotten existed. And, no matter what happens in my new work, I will never make myself little in order to make someone else feel big. If you're listening to this and see yourself in my story, if you've been putting your goals on hold to support someone who doesn't reciprocate, remember that it's never too late to rediscover who you were intended to be. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't fighting against how others perceive you. It's about resisting the limited version of yourself that you've come to accept. After 12 years of supporting myself, my parents demanded I pay my sister's $40,000 debt. Then sent a lawyer to force me into family loyalty. Hello everyone, I've been around here for a while but have never really shared anything. I never imagined I'd have a reason to, but my family has officially pushed me to my limits. I need to know what others think. It seems like no matter what I do, I'm constantly portrayed as the evil person, and I'm exhausted. So this is what has been going on. I'm a 30-year-old male who has been living alone since the age of 18. When I say on my own, I mean it. Financially and emotionally, you name it. Let's just say my parents aren't exactly known for their parenting or sibling support skills. They were not the type of parents who would encourage you or make you feel unique. Instead, they had an unsaid code that guided my entire childhood. My younger sister Emma could do no wrong, and I was expected to be the responsible one. If Emma messed up, and believe me, she messed up a lot, it was brushed under the rug. She's just sensitive, my mother would explain. Or it may have been, she'll learn eventually, meaning, let's pretend this never happened and hope she figures it out. Meanwhile, every time I stumbled, it felt like the sky was collapsing. Why aren't you trying harder? You need to set a better example for your sister. No matter what I did, it was never enough. I could send home a report card full of A's, and they'd wonder why I didn't get an A+ in math. What about Emma? She barely passed, saying, "At least you're doing your best, sweetie." That dynamic persisted even after we reached adulthood. If anything, things grew worse. Emma lived with my parents until she was in her mid-20s, hopping from one failing job to the next, always finding an explanation for why it wasn't her fault. Meanwhile, I was working 2 part-time jobs to pay for education and figuring out how to manage my own rent and bills. They never offered to help me, not that I expected them to, but it hurt to see them go above and above for Emma while I was left to fend for myself. Anyway, 6 months ago my mother called me. Now please understand that my mother does not call merely to speak. She does not call to check in or say hello. She calls because she needs something. You know the type of call I'm talking about, one that begins with overly nice small talk as if they're attempting to warm you up before revealing the true reason they're calling. That's exactly what occurred. She began by asking, "How's work? Are you still at that company? Have you been eating well?" It was so out of character that I sensed something was up. My mother doesn't care how I eat. She doesn't know what I do for a living besides something with computers. The entire conversation felt forced, as if she was trying too hard to sound casual. Then she told me Emma was in trouble. I was not surprised. Emma always seemed to be in trouble. But I didn't expect this. Emma had apparently accumulated $40,000 in debt, and it was not the type of debt that can be dismissed as young foolishness, such as college loans or maxed-out credit cards. No. She had borrowed from some pretty dubious people, and they were now serious about getting their money back. My mother's voice cracked as if she were going to cry, which I'm sure she hoped would make me give in. She wasted no time pouring on the guilt. "You've done so well for yourself. You've always been the strong one. Emma's not like you. She needs your help." I sat there for a bit, trying to understand what she had said. $40,000. How does someone even manage to rack up that kind of debt? I asked her how it happened, partly anticipating some ludicrous explanation, and my mother dismissed it. "That doesn't matter right now," she responded, as if I was fixated on the wrong issue. "What matters is that she's your sister. Family helps family." For years they've used the adage, "family helps family," as an excuse. It's what they said whenever they needed me to fix something for Emma, cover for her, or clean up the mess she had made. And every time I swallowed my rage and did what they requested because I didn't want to be the villain. But this? $40,000? I could not do it. Not this time. I told her no. Straight up. I replied, "I'm sorry, but I can't bail Emma out of a mess she created." And with that, the tone of the conversation changed. My mother went from pitiful to pissed in about 2 seconds flat. "You're being selfish," she yelled. "You're abandoning your family when they need you most." She even said, "Do you want her blood on your hands?" As if Emma's horrible life decisions were somehow my fault. At this point, I hung up. I couldn't listen to it any longer. My hands shook and my chest tightened, but I knew I'd made the correct decision. I've worked too hard to let someone else's terrible decisions bring me down. Still, the remorse set in almost instantly. My family has a habit of twisting things to make me feel like the evil guy, and this time was no exception. Even though I answered no, I couldn't shake the thought that I could have made the wrong decision. Standing up to my family felt right at the time, but now I'm left wondering whether I've just made things worse. What if they are right? What if I am being selfish? And to be honest, I'm still not sure what's next. That call was only the beginning, and what happened next threw me completely off guard. I have a feeling this isn't over, but I'll keep you updated as events unfold. I will provide an update soon. Update 1. Hello everyone. So I thought things could calm down for a moment. Maybe she would stew for a time before letting it go. It turns out I was way off. The drama escalated quickly, and I wasn't prepared for it. It's been a complete disaster, and I'm still figuring out how to cope with it. Let me break it down. Things deteriorated when I hung up with my mother. I knew she wouldn't let it go, but I wasn't expecting the level of guilt-tripping and pestering that ensued. My phone was continuously blowing up. First, it was my mother with texts like, "We raised you better than this," and "You'll regret turning your back on your family." My father then spoke up despite his habit of remaining silent. His messages were brief and direct, such as, You're better than this. Or, do the right thing. What about Emma? Oh, Emma went all out. She sent me a lengthy, whiny text about how her life was falling apart and how she did not deserve to be abandoned. She used phrases such as, "I've always looked up to you, and now you're just leaving me to suffer. And you're rich. It's not like $40,000 would even make a dent for you." That made me giggle. Rich? Just because I don't live paycheck to paycheck doesn't mean I have a lot of money. The arrogance in her tone was astonishing. I did not respond to any of them. I figured if I ignored it, they'd realize I wasn't going to budge and leave it go. A few days later, I received a call from my aunt. She's one of the few family members with whom I get along, so I picked up. She sounded embarrassed, as if she did not want to make the call but felt had to. She claimed that my mother had been telling everyone in the family that I was refusing to help Emma and letting her sink. Emma's life, according to my mother, was in jeopardy, and all I could do was stand by and watch. My aunt did not trust anything I told her, but she wanted to hear my side of the story. I detailed the entire situation, including how Emma got herself in this predicament, and wanted me to suddenly cure it. My aunt was astonished but supportive. She told me I wasn't wrong to say no, and Emma should face the consequences of her actions. Hearing that helped slightly, but the harm had already been done. My mother had circulated the story far and wide, distorting it so that I appeared to be the villain. I began receiving texts from cousins, uncles, and even a few old family friends. The majority of them were unclear, such as, "You should really think about what family means," or, "You'll regret this one day." Some were downright cruel. One of my relatives accused me of being selfish and behaved as if I was too wonderful for the family. I ignored them all, but the relentless barrage became taxing. The situation then escalated. One afternoon, my bank called me. I initially believed it was a hoax because who genuinely receives calls from their bank? However, the man on the phone indicated that someone had attempted to access my accounts using false information. They reported it as suspicious because the documents did not match, and thankfully, nothing was taken. I quickly recognized who was behind Emma. It had to be her. She was desperate, and if she was prepared to involve the entire family, why wouldn't she try to steal from me? I called the bank for more information, but all they could tell me was that my accounts had been temporarily closed as a precaution. I thanked them and hung up, enraged. This wasn't simply about guilt trips or emotional manipulation anymore. This was criminal. I need answers, so I am thinking of contacting Emma personally. What would you do if you were in my position? Thank you for sticking around. I will keep you updated. Update 2. Hello again, everyone. Have you been waiting for the confrontation news? Sorry for being late, but here's how it went. When I arrived at Emma's place later that evening, I was still angry over my decision to face her. I hadn't told her I was coming, and I wasn't sure what I would say. All I knew was that I needed to face her in the eyes and hear her confess what she had done. Perhaps a part of me hoped she'd deny it to give me cause to believe my sister wasn't the kind to fall that low. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see me, but not in the, "What are you doing here?" kind. It seemed as if she had expected me to show up eventually. She was wearing sweatpants and her hair looked like she had just rolled out of bed. Not that I cared about her beauty, but it contributed to the whole feeling of, I don't have my life together. "What are you doing here?" she questioned, leaning against the doorframe as if it were a casual visit. I didn't even attempt to ease into it. "Did you try to steal from me?" I said, holding out my phone with the bank alert, still shown on the screen. My voice was definitely louder than necessary, but I couldn't help it. I was pissed. Her expression froze for a while, and I thought, maybe she'll lie. Maybe she'll try to deny it. But no. Instead, she shrugged her eyes as if I was exaggerating and said, "Oh, come on. You weren't going to help me. So what choice did I have?" What options did she have? I glanced at her, perplexed. "Do you even hear yourself? You tried to steal from me because I wouldn't bail you out of your own mess? That's not just wrong, Emma, that's illegal." She shrugged, like if we were talking about borrowing a sweater or something. "Mom and Dad said you'd come around eventually," she explained, crossing her arms. "They told me to push you harder, bet you'd cave if I made it serious enough." I couldn't believe what I heard. You've got to be kidding me, I told you. They encouraged you to do this? To commit fraud? Do you even realize how insane that sounds? They didn't tell me to commit fraud, she admitted. They just said you wouldn't let me sink if you thought I was really in trouble. And guess what? I am in trouble. I don't have anyone else to turn to. I was so enraged that I couldn't think clearly. You don't have anyone else to turn to because you've burned every bridge you've ever had. I gasped. This isn't just about the money, Emma. It's about the fact that you've never taken responsibility for anything in your life, and now you're dragging me into your mess because you're too selfish to deal with the consequences of your own actions. She did not even flinch. You're being dramatic, she said to me, waving me away. It's not like I actually got anything from you. The bank stopped it, didn't they? So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I corrected myself. The big deal is that you tried. The big deal is that you thought you had the right to steal from me just because you're too lazy to clean up your own mess. And the even bigger deal is that Mom and Dad think this is okay. That finally seems to get under her skin. Her face contorted into a mix of fury and shame. Instead than apologizing, she doubled down. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? She quipped. Just because you have a fancy job and a dumb house, you think you can sit there and judge me. Well, big brother, you wouldn't be where you are without Mom and Dad. They gave everything for us, and this is how you thank them? I laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant laugh. It was the type of laugh that comes from being so frustrated that you don't know what else to do. Mom and Dad didn't make any sacrifices for me, I answered. I started paying rent when I was 18. I put myself through college. Every sacrifice was made for you, Emma. They offered you everything on a silver platter, whereas I was left to find things out for myself. So don't even try to pull the family loyalty card on me. She didn't have an answer to that, or maybe she did, but she didn't say it out loud. Instead, she simply stood there, gazing at me as if I was the evil guy in this whole thing. I could not handle it anymore. Do you know what? I said, stepping back toward the door. I'm done. I am done with you, Mom and Dad, and the entire toxic family dynamic. Do you want to wreck your life? Fine. But you're not dragging me down with you. I left before she could say anything further. On the way home, my fists gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles became white. I was angry, yes, but I was also hurt, not just by Emma, but also by my parents. How could they think this was acceptable? How could they justify pushing her to do anything like this? When I came home, I sat down and wrote a list of everything I needed to do to protect myself. I phoned my bank to double-check that my accounts were secure. I changed all of my passwords, and I even called a lawyer buddy to see what my options were if Emma did something similar again. He said I could press charges if I wanted, but I wasn't ready yet. That night, I couldn't sleep because I kept repeating the conversation in my head, wondering if I could have handled it better. But deep down, I knew that no matter what I said or did, Emma wouldn't change, and as long as my parents enabled her, she wouldn't have to. After the confrontation with Emma, I believed things couldn't get any worse. How much lower could they sink? It turns out that I misjudged my family's ability to make bad situations worse. About a week later, my parents came up to my house with no call or contact, simply standing on my porch as if they owned the place. I considered not answering the door, but I knew they'd keep ringing it until I gave in and opened it. My mother didn't even greet me. She pushed past me as if she had a right to be there, her face hot with rage. My father followed her inside, looking uncomfortable but clearly there to support her. I shut the door, took a deep breath, and prepared myself. This has gone far enough, my mom yelled, swinging around to face me. We need to talk. I crossed my arms. I think we've already said everything that needs to be said. No, we haven't, she responded. You should stop this nonsense and help your sister. She is family. She is your responsibility. I glanced at her, stunned. What is my responsibility? Emma is a grown adult who got herself into this problem. I continued, trying to keep my voice calm. I'm not her mom, and I'm definitely not her ATM. My mother's face contorted with frustration. Do you think we enjoy asking you for help? Do you believe this is easy for us? This is about familial loyalty. You don't just leave your family when things are rough. I laughed bitterly. Do you mean the commitment you showed when you charged me rent when I was 18? Or when you forced me to pay for my own college while Emma had everything handed to her? Or how about when you kept allowing her to make mistakes and expecting me to repair them? Yes. No thanks. My father finally spoke up, his voice low and serious. Do you believe we have had an easy life? Raising 2 children and trying to give you both the best we could? We made so many sacrifices for you. Stop, I interrupted him. Just stop. Every sacrifice you made was for Emma. Every time something went wrong, you went out of your way to fix it for her, leaving me to fend for myself. And you know what? That is okay. I don't need your assistance, and I never have. But don't stand here lecturing me on loyalty when you've been allowing her horrible conduct for years. My mother's face grew blazing red and I knew she was about to lose it. If you don't help her, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life, she growled. Do you want her to end up on the street? Do you want her blood on your hands? And it was the same guilt trip she attempted to perform on the phone call. I could feel my blood boiling. I just didn't comprehend their rationale. I'm not responsible for what happens to Emma, I said. She made her own decisions. If she ends up on the streets, it's her fault and yours since you never taught her to be accountable for her actions. My mother was virtually shivering with wrath by this point. Fine, she told me. If this is the kind of person you want to be, don't expect us to be there for you when you need us. I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. I've never needed you, I answered coldly. And after this, I never will. For a minute, the room was dead silent. My father appeared to want to say something, but he didn't, and my mother simply stared at me, her chest heaving as if she were going to explode. Then, without saying anything more, she rushed out. My father followed her, but he lingered at the door to give me one last look, a mix of disappointment and something else I couldn't quite name. Perhaps regret. Then he departed too. As soon as the door closed behind them, I felt an immense sense of relief. I didn't care about their approbation, their guilt trips, or their toxic concept of family devotion. I was done. Of course they weren't. The next day, my mother sent me an email. It was long and rambling, full of the typical guilt-tripping gibberish. She accused me of being ungrateful and unkind, of abandoning my family in their time of need, and of breaking her heart. She even intimated that she and my father would cut me out of their will, as if to intimidate me into submission. I did not answer. What was the point? Then Emma began up again, sending me a theatrical text about how she was losing everything, and how it was all my fault. She said she had to sell her car, was behind on rent, and was being harassed by her creditors. Honestly, I didn't feel bad. She dug her own hole and now had to deal with the consequences. A few days later, I received a letter, not from my family but from a lawyer. My parents threatened to sue me, claiming that I had a moral obligation to support Emma and had irreparably harmed the family by refusing to help. It was pretty funny. I emailed the letter to my own lawyer, who informed me it was pure crap. They didn't have a leg to stand on, and nothing would come of it. Yet, the fact that they even tried was enough for me. I was done with Emma, my parents, and the unhealthy family dynamic. I blocked their numbers, removed them from social media, and informed the few relatives I still interacted with that I didn't want to hear anything about my parents or Emma. The majority of them understood, but a few tried to persuade me to find a way to make peace, which I quickly rejected. Peace was impossible with folks who considered me as nothing more than a safety net for Emma's poor choices. Here's where I'm at right now. I'm miserable. Do you think it's usual for a family to go this far? Final update. Hello again. I decided to post a last update once I worked everything out, so here we go. After throwing that lawyer's letter in the trash and mailing it to my lawyer just in case, I finally made a decision that had been weighing on me for years. I was going no contact, completely and permanently. I'd been holding out hope that my family would change, but the lawyer stunt proved that they weren't going to stop. If anything, they were escalating their destructive behavior, and I wasn't going to allow them pull me deeper into their insanity. So I went into full block mode, blocking my mother, father, Emma, and everyone else's phone numbers and emails. Honestly, pushing the block button felt strangely satisfying. Then I went through my social media accounts and deleted them as well. There was no way I was leaving any doors open for them to sneak back in. I sent a fast text to the few family members I truly like, largely cousins, informing them that I was finished with the family drama and requesting them not to play messenger for anyone. Most of them were fine with it, but a handful hit me with the "but they're your family" guilt trip. My response is short and sweet. Being family doesn't mean you get to treat me like crap. The most difficult part was presenting the issue to a few mutual acquaintances who knew my parents. Some of them couldn't believe what I was saying, as if they couldn't believe that my parents and sister had attempted to steal from me, guilt me, and now sue me. One buddy even inquired, "Are you certain there isn't more to the story?" As if I had somehow overlooked the bit where this was entirely my fault. I felt terrible, but I let it go. The ones who mattered believed me, and that was enough. The first week of no communication was difficult, not because I missed them, but because they refused to let up easily. Despite having their numbers blocked, they found ways to get through. My mother began phoning from unknown numbers and leaving long, dramatic voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart. She would say things like, "We just want to talk," or "You're punishing us for trying to do the right thing." It was exhausting. I didn't listen to the majority of the messages and deleted them as soon as I recognized who they were from. Then there came the letters. My parents must have gone directly from their lawyer's office to the post office, because the letters began arriving almost immediately. At first, they were basically rubbish, with my mother penning pages upon pages about how much she sacrificed for me and how I broke her heart. My father also responded, albeit in a more direct manner. One of his letters read, "If you don't help Emma, don't expect us to ever forgive you." Forgive me for what exactly? For not allowing my sister to steal from me? For not enabling her terrible choices? The sheer arrogance of it was almost comical. By the second week, their communications had gone entirely off track. My mother's letters were frantic and deranged, with vague threats such as, "You'll regret this one day," and "You'll be sorry when it's too late." It was all guilt and doom, like if she was trying to terrify me back in line. My father, however, did not hold back. His emails were caustic, accusing me of being selfish, ungrateful, and arrogant. He said that I had forgotten where I came from and was betraying the people who made you who you are. It wasn't simply guilt, it felt like they were attempting to break me down, as if they couldn't bear losing their hold on me. And then there was Emma, who wasted no time playing the victim. She sent me this long, handwritten letter, most likely because she knew I had banned her emails, telling me how much I had hurt her and how she couldn't believe I would forsake her in her time of need. She wrote stuff like this: "You have always been my rock, and now you are simply leaving me to sink. I thought you cared about me, but obviously I was mistaken." I could not believe her audacity. She closed the letter by asking for money again, this time for a $5,000 loan to help her get back on her feet. She even offered to repay me as soon as circumstances were better. I laughed so hard I almost cried, as if I was going to fall for it after everything she had done. However, my mother went completely insane when she showed up to my office. Yes, she showed up to my workplace unexpectedly. She stormed into the lobby demanding to see me, and when the receptionist refused to move, she lost control. She began yelling loudly enough for the entire building to hear, calling me a terrible son, and screaming about how I was ruining the family. Security had to intervene and physically escort her out. I stood there, utterly frozen, witnessing the whole incident from the mezzanine. My coworkers didn't say anything, but their expressions were pure horror. I wished the dirt would swallow me entirely. That was it. I wasn't just angry. I was done. That night, I phoned a family law attorney, not the acquaintance I'd casually consulted before, but a true professional. I lay out everything: harassment, entitlement, and lunacy. She listened, asked a few pointed questions, and then told me exactly what to do. The next day, we created a cease and desist letter and sent it to everyone, including my mom, dad, Emma, and their lawyer. It was absolutely clear. Contact me again, and I will take legal action, no exceptions. I didn't think they'd stop, but surprisingly, it worked. My mother's calls stopped, and the hateful letters were gone. Even Emma, the queen of guilt trips, went radio silence. 6 months after cutting ties, life is different, quieter, lighter, and honestly, better. It wasn't easy, but putting myself first over my family's incessant chaos was the best decision I've ever made. Of course, not everyone understands, and a few relatives continue to use the same outdated line. But they're your family. Do you know what I say to that? Family is nothing if they don't respect you. Blood does not give someone the right to disrupt your calm. You do not owe somebody your time, money, or sanity simply because you share DNA. Boundaries are not harsh. They are necessary. Honestly, cutting them off was the best thing I've ever done. With the turmoil behind me, I pushed myself into work and finally received the promotion I had been wanting for years. Emma, from what I've heard, is still struggling. She works part-time and lives with a friend after losing her apartment. I don't feel bad about it anymore. She made her bed. My parents continue to share their story with anyone who will listen, but fewer people are buying it these days. It's liberating not to care. I've also started reconnecting with others I'd lost touch with, including a few cousins, and I've even opened up to someone I'm currently dating. They've been quite supportive, and for the first time, I feel as if I'm surrounded by people who genuinely respect me. To anyone dealing with a toxic family, I understand how difficult it is. But things get better. Cutting them off felt like ripping off a Band-Aid, but the peace that followed was well worth the anguish. You owe it to yourself to choose peace and yourself. My sister got a plus grades and no job. They called me a failure for an F, but I hired her and humiliated my parents at their own celebration. I am a 27-year-old male. My parents kicked me out of the house because I had poor grades. Yeah, it is correct. Despite having lived in the United States for 2 generations, my parents have learned nothing about child rearing from American parents. My parents literally wrecked up my entire upbringing by stressing over my school scores. They believe that good grades are the only way to lead a prosperous life. To make matters worse, my sister, who is a year older than me, is the class topper, so I was continuously compared in school and at home. The situation was improved till elementary school. I used to receive A's in most disciplines. My sister graduated from elementary school with an A+ and led the class, whereas I received an A and finished outside of the top 10. That marked the beginning of my parents' disappointment. In middle school, following each exam result, my parents would sit down with my sister's grade card from the previous year and compare it to mine. As this game of comparison began, my grades began to fall further. My parents became increasingly enraged with each drop in my grades. My grades dropped from A's in elementary school to B's and C's. My folks had lost their minds. Except for striking me, they did everything they could to penalize me for each drop in grade. They forced me to kneel for several hours without food or water. They'd starve me in the evening before the exam so I could concentrate on my study. A month before the tests, they would take away my video games, lock me up at home, prevent me from going out to play, and deny me ice cream, chocolate, and any of my favorite meals. Whenever I asked for something, their reaction would be, "Get good grades, then you'll get this." I eventually stopped asking for anything, knowing I wouldn't get it. My parents own a food store on the back street. My grandparents were immigrants to this country. The grandfather worked as a daily wage laborer, and the grandma as a janitor. They both worked 2 jobs to support my father and the other 2 uncles. My father had to leave his studies early to support his family. He has been working since he was 11. A similar story runs through my mother's family. Mom and Dad worked hard in their teens and 20s to save money and open this tiny grocery store on the corner of the street. They believe that achieving good marks can only lift them out of poverty. We are not as destitute as they portray the normal Asian practice of storing for a rainy day while starving on the current day. While I respect their hard work and belief in the educational system, they went overboard. School grades are almost irrelevant until you have to repeat a year, and repeating a year is not that horrible. It only puts you a year behind your peers. But that's fine. By tormenting a child at such a young age, they were preparing me for failure. As a child, I truly tried to keep up with my sister's grade, but I couldn't. Like my sister, I failed to memorize information efficiently. However, I was good at calculations that did not involve mugging up. But as my parents' punishments became more severe, I rebelled. I purposely skipped classes and hung out at the playground. I would load my exam papers with silly jokes and song lyrics to irritate them even more. They grounded me by keeping me in a basement with my books and releasing me only when I finished my courses. On weekends and vacations, I was not permitted to play outside. All of my video games and comics were seized, and new ones were never purchased. But I was a bright kid. Whatever they did, I managed to sneak out. My parents left for the grocery shop in the morning and only returned at night, so I spent the entire day playing outside. When my parents discovered that I was sneaking away in their absence, they began accompanying me to the store on weekends and during summer vacations. It was supposed to be a punishment for me, but it turned out to be something I rather enjoyed. I like interacting with customers, advising them on which cereal brand to buy, and managing the billing counter. This did not go over well with my parents. They did not want me to operate the grocery store. They wanted me to be a doctor or an engineer. Anything less than that would bring shame to an Asian household. One day, I casually mentioned that I wanted to be a salesman because I'm good at closing deals. My parents were appalled to hear this because they believed that only ignorant people worked in sales. Since they are spending so much money on my schooling, I should do a respectable career, such as a doctor or engineer. All of this continued until I pushed all of their buttons by receiving an F grade in my first year of high school. My parents couldn't believe I had to repeat a year. They were finished with their punishment. They blew right on my face as if I had committed a horrific crime. There was nothing left to punish me. Except for beating me, they appeared to have done everything they could to get me back on track. The verbal abuse and mental suffering reached their peak. They stated I brought shame to the house and they couldn't bear the embarrassment I caused the family. They threw me out of the house, telling me I was on my own and should never return home, even if I perished from starvation and cold. I was devastated. Though I was a notorious child, I never considered running away from home. I was not prepared for this. My parents didn't allow me to mingle, so I didn't have many friends to seek support. I was either tied up at home or taken to the grocery store to help out. When the first terror of living on the street subsided, I felt liberated. I felt so relieved to be able to do whatever I wanted. My first night, I slept on a bench in an open park. The next day, I headed downtown looking for a sales position. I knew I was good at selling. I went from store to store, asking if they had any openings. After applying at over a dozen businesses, I got a position at a beauty store. It wasn't simple either. I had no qualifications or prior experience, but the store owner needed a staff member right away, so he assigned me the responsibility of selling a pricey lipstick as an add-on to a customer who was only there for night cream. I am not sure how, but I was able to do it. The owner thought I was passionate and attractive enough to sell makeup to young women, so he hired me. The money was poor, but he provided a place to sleep. Later, as sales soared, I requested a commission on each transaction I made. That was the start of my path to become a successful businessman. My parents thought that forcing me to work at their grocery store was a punishment. They had no idea it would be so beneficial to me. It offered me real-world experience. I wish they had recognized my potential and understood that practical experience is far more valuable than mindlessly blasting theoretical stuff. After that, I changed employment to get a better wage. One of my employers even offered to cover my education tuition, but I declined. I had something else in mind. I wanted to establish my own business. At the age of 21, I founded my own company, which offers support and sales services to other small enterprises. My company closes sales for other product-based businesses. We produce sales and revenue for them, and they give us a high commission. My company's initiatives span all product categories, from credit cards to insurance, cosmetics, and books. We have business relationships with a variety of companies. It did not explode in a day or a year. It took more than 5 years to become stable. I started it with 5 staff and 1 client, selling mattresses and pillows. We now have 200 sales agents who help 50-plus companies sell thousands of products. Enough of this nonsense. Coming to the point, my mother has been pursuing me for the past few weeks. She's started following me on Facebook and Instagram. I have an open account, and she is browsing through my profile, loving my old photos and posts. I'm not sure if she's attempting to draw attention to herself or if she's zooming in on my image by accident. One thing is certain. They are mesmerized by my lifestyle. They thought I was a loser who would never be able to achieve anything in life without decent grades. But here I am, earning 6 figures per month. A week ago, she texted me stating she missed me and invited me to come home. I saw her message and marked her as seen. She is praising me and expressing how glad she is to see her son succeed in life. She is now pressing me to pay her a visit. Despite my efforts to disregard her messages, I couldn't stop thinking about them and my childhood trauma. I really want to return it to them for all of the shame they've caused me. I want to go home and show them how successful I am. However, my fiancée believes that I should avoid them and not become entangled in their emotional web. She believes that they will eventually use guilt to extort money from me. What do you all think I should do? Update number 1. Hello everyone. This is going to be hilarious. Despite my girlfriend's objections, I wanted to show off my achievement to my parents, so I visited them. Dad was not home, but Mom and sister were waiting for me. Dad is still unaware of my success. He believes I'm getting money by duping innocent people and does not want to be linked with me. Mom apologized to me and said that I had to suffer because of Dad's old school ideals about getting good marks for life. It was hilarious how Mom used Dad as a scapegoat while also abusing me. I mentioned that she was stricter in penalizing me. She brushed it off, claiming she was simply following Dad's orders as a dutiful wife. When I tried to put her on the spot again, she laughed out loud and said it was a century-old story, and I should go on, and we should reconnect as a happy family, it seems. I inquired about my sister's life. She stated that she had a master's degree in literature but is having difficulty finding work as a teacher due to weak communication and social skills. Though I recognized the cause for her terrible people skills, I pretended to be intrigued and asked her why she couldn't get a job despite her outstanding scores. She blamed our parents for her failures. She has essentially spent her whole life imprisoned in a room, studying to please and impress our parents. She pushed herself to the limit and completely lost herself in the literature. She was a year older than me, and I knew how solitary she used to be at school. She hardly had any pals. Mom refused to let her have any because she believed that white children were poor students and a terrible influence. Do you spot an issue here? Despite working so hard her entire life, she is unable to get work. Even if she is hired based on her qualifications, her lack of communication and social skills cost her the job. Seeing her state, I'm pleased I was a renegade. Otherwise, I would have met a similar end as her. They also wanted to keep me isolated, not allowing me to interact with other children and instead focusing on my schoolwork. How incorrect were they? My sister joined me in criticizing my mother for her bad parenting abilities. Mom began sobbing and very cleverly transferred all of the responsibility onto Dad. After we finished blaming Mom for our horrible childhood, I asked her why she contacted me. She went on and on telling me how delighted she was to witness my accomplishment. The truth was, she had no idea what I was doing. As I previously stated to an Asian parent, the definition of success is a doctor, engineer, or a high-paying position in a bank, at the very least. They don't comprehend entrepreneurship. To them, running any business is synonymous with running a grocery shop, which they despise. Sitting in that house brought back so many memories from my childhood, when my parents convinced me that I would end up on the streets as a loser. They even tricked me into believing that I was mentally unfit and that there was something wrong with me that prevented me from scoring an A+. Oh, I forgot to mention it. My parents even took me to a therapist because they thought I had trouble focusing on my studies. After 2 to 3 sessions, the therapist chastised my parents for excessively pressuring me to study, claiming that I was a perfectly normal child with a typical IQ for my age. My girlfriend betted that my mother had invited me to ask for money. She lost the bet because Mom did not ask for any money, but her behavior indicates that a money demand is on its way. Since then, my mother has been continuously checking on me, and any time her text message appears, my girlfriend places a $1 bet that it is about money. LOL. I'm winning every single bet because Mom hasn't requested the money yet. But I believe I'm about to lose the wager because Mom has invited me to dinner this weekend. I know she's attempting to construct a positive image of herself before asking for anything. I just got a text from her saying she is planning a dinner for me this weekend. I will provide an update in my next post. I have to rush right now. Bye. Update number 2. Hello everyone. I got my sweet revenge on my folks. I don't think they'll call me again after this humiliation. In my last post, I mentioned Mom's text inviting me to supper. I replied saying I was busy and couldn't make it. Yes, I was being costly. Since she insisted, I questioned her why she was being so nice to me since Dad still believes I am making money illegally. She explained that Dad was planning the meal for me as a gesture of reconciliation with me. She claims that Dad is proud of me and wants to apologize to me in person. I responded, "What do you mean by organizing? It's just the four of us, right?" She said no, they're calling all their close friends and relatives who live nearby. I answered, "Sure, I will be there." I couldn't have gotten a finer chance to avenge my childhood suffering. Mom requested that I arrive on time and dress appropriately. My rebellious side was ignited. I wore my workout sweater with hiking shorts and a cap on top. I arrived 2 hours late. It's a terrific deal for an Asian parent, as wearing shorts at a social event is considered a felony. Mom repeatedly called me, but I did not answer. I basically texted a couple of times saying I would be late with no reason or explanation. I am sure that would have irritated my parents. They have a thing for presenting themselves as the perfect individuals. If any guests arrived at my house, my parents would spend at least 2 days cleaning every area of the house, compiling a list of food items to be served to the guests, and arranging everything in its proper location. The guests would be served with the best china set, and if they stayed, they would be given the best bed sheets, pillows, and everything else. They claim that it is our custom to treat our guests with the utmost respect, although part of it is exaggerated for social acceptance. My parents had reserved one rooftop portion of the restaurant. When I came in such casual attire, I was given a glance. Because I make more than everybody else there, that expression was replaced with a phony smile of admiration. My parents were also upset, although they didn't voice it. They hugged me, raised a toast to me, and sang my praises. This was the first time Dad had hugged me. Not reassuring at all. I felt resentful. The way they behaved made me wonder if I was the jerk who had always assumed they were wrong. They're imposters. The hall was packed with people, and for a brief moment, I considered quietly tolerating it, eating my dinner, and leaving. But the way they flaunted my accomplishment alongside theirs irritated me. They were gloating about my accomplishments, wealth, and opulent lifestyle. And guess what? They were taking full credit for developing me into a good human being. My outspoken aunt stepped in and shouted, "Didn't you toss him out of the house?" I broke out laughing and clapped for her guts. My parents' faces flushed with humiliation, but they quickly covered it up, stating that it was a way to get me on the right track, and that it was because of their punishment that I was able to do good in life. I lost my marbles when they stated this. I was like, that's correct, people. I attribute my whole success to my poisonous parents. And do you know what was the best decision they ever made for me? I was kicked out of my house and forced to live on the streets. Yeah, it is correct. You're so certain that you knew I'd make it huge. It's kind of funny because I recall another variation. Didn't you used to say that I'd wind up a loser, homeless, drug addict, or worse, a criminal? Wow. Remember how you all deprived me of a family vacation as a punishment for my poor grades? You used to lock me home for a whole week with so little food. I was locked in the basement without proper ventilation for hours and was asked to complete my lessons there. You're right, all of this was necessary to make me a better person. Maybe everyone in this room should do the same to their child to make them successful, you see? Fuck. This is the secret sauce of success, you know. My mother tried to interfere, but I ignored her and continued my rant. My sister tried to calm me down by caressing my arms, but I was uncontrollable. My parents were in tears, and they would have preferred death over this humiliation in front of the entire neighborhood. However, I don't care about their reputation. My sister, who was only a year older than me, was also crying as she stood beside me. Some of you remarked on how I could have a soft corner for my sister when she never stood up for me as an elder sister, but I don't blame her. She was a child just like me, and my parents did more harm to her than to me. At least I was able to rebel and enjoy my life, sneak out to play and make a better life for myself. I have offered her a job in my company and she has taken personality development classes, but it hasn't helped her much. She has lost her spine by obeying our parents, and she hasn't had a chance to enjoy her childhood. I suggested that she start working in my company and develop some soft skills before deciding on a career. I've cut off all relations with my parents, instructed Mom not to contact me ever again, and that I was only talking to her to exact revenge on them. I've blocked her. I plan to contact my sister, who congratulated me on revealing our parents' identities. She claimed that this was the best retribution I could exact on my parents because they aren't concerned about money or anything else other than their status as the ideal parents in front of the community. After that dinner night, some of my family friends and relatives reached out to me, saying how sorry they were to hear about my struggle. I told them that I didn't reveal my parents' truth to gain sympathy. I just wanted everyone to know that cornering your child for grades would do more harm than good, and we have ourselves as examples of bad parenting. Moving on to the next story. Story 2. My husband cheated on me, pretended to forgive me, then made me feel his feelings, and now he's leaving me for the lady who used to make me jealous. I, 30F, cheated on my husband, 27WM, who is taking it well, but I believe he resents me. I know I did something horrible and filthy, and when I couldn't bear the guilt any longer, I ended my affair and confessed everything to my husband. He became more upset and depressed than angry, and I begged him not to divorce me. I suggested counseling, therapy, and even allowing him to have sex with other women, but he was uninterested. He said he wanted to try to work things out, and I jumped in to be the best wife a man could ask for. I cooked his favorite dishes, left him loving notes, and bought new lingerie to entice him. His reactions are at most there. He smiles and thanks me, but he has never declared he loves me since I disclosed. He rarely initiates or appreciates anything, and I basically have to push myself on him despite his complaints. We occasionally discuss this, but I believe I have still lost the man I love. His behavior with me feels very artificial, and nothing changes his facade. I can be playful, sad, angry, or seductive, and his reaction is always this stupid smile and polite words. He was so emotional and sincere before everything happened. I want him to express his actual emotions with me, even if he despises me. I still love him so much. What can I do to change this? Is this a troll post? If not, please provide some information. How long have you been together? And how long has the affair lasted? Who is the other man? A co-worker. OP. We've been married for 5 years. My affair lasted a few months and was with a client. Independent farmer, 62-8. Okay, thank you. What do you mean by cutting off the affair? Is this person still a client? Do you need to maintain business contact with him? Are you seeing a therapist? Do you know why you strayed? OP. I canceled my relationship with the client, sent his contract to a co-worker, and have been taking individual treatment ever since. I'm not sure why I did all of this, but my body felt like it was on autopilot. Update 1. He knows I cheated. We did not split, and I begged him not to divorce me and let me fix this. He agreed, but his behavior since my confession has been largely indifferent. As I mentioned in my last piece, I do my best to be the best wife he could ask for. I cook his favorite dishes, get him gifts, and screw his brains out every night. He just smiles and thanks me. He never yells at me, but I can sense his icy indifference beneath that courtesy. When I called him when he was out, he only answered once, and I could hear a woman giggling in the background. I asked him what was going on, and he politely informed me that it was none of my business. I'm starting to suspect he's cheating on me, which hurts. If he told me, I'd do my best to accept it. After all, I deserve it. But he won't tell me, instead shutting me out. A common friend told me she saw him in a car with a woman she didn't recognize, and it felt like a stab in the heart. She said she couldn't describe her exactly because she wore big sunglasses, but she recognized my husband because of his particular taste in neckties. They were talking, but from their position, it looked like they were holding hands, or one of them was touching the other's lap. I don't know what to do. If he's having an affair, I deserve it, but I need to know. The ambiguity is killing me. Should I confront him or try to learn more? Update 2. He abandoned me. I did what you folks recommended and begged him to talk to me. He didn't want to, but after I wept and yelled so much that I puked all over, he softened and helped me clean up while we chatted. I questioned him if he was cheating on me, and he said he was talking to someone but didn't do anything with her. I asked if she was the woman my buddy saw him with, and he said no, that was another woman he met in his workplace a month ago. I asked him how he could, and he said I gave him permission, and he didn't do anything but unload his problems in our situation with her. But he pretended he was having a full affair so I could feel what he felt, especially since, according to him, I neglected him and made it clear I was cheating on him. He stated he was hurting and I was virtually rubbing it in his face. I told him I wasn't doing it on purpose, but he said it was worse because I didn't care. He claimed that everything I did after confessing was meaningless and made him believe that I am greedy, self-centered, and lacking in self-respect. I asked him if we could work on me and our marriage, but he replied we could get counseling to work things out, but the marriage was done. He stated he desires no harm to me and decided to end his ruse because he couldn't stand to see the lady he once loved suffer like this. But he added, I am no longer that woman. I started sobbing again, and he embraced me. But when I begged if we could work this out, he continued repeating no. I asked him what he was going to do when he moved out, and he said he had already found another apartment. I inquired if he'd planned to live with that woman, and he answered no, but she was close enough. I questioned him how he could choose a total stranger he met a month ago over his wife of 5 years, and he answered his wife of 5 years no longer exists, so he had to choose between two strangers, and that woman impressed him much more. I told him he was an idiot, and that he couldn't have known that this woman would most likely use and dump him. He got angry and declared she was definitely better than me. He said he won't tell our families that our marriage ended because I cheated, but because we grew apart, and that he will leave the house to me as long as I make the divorce go smoothly. But if I try to take him to the cleaners, drag it out, or cause any problems, he will tell everyone what I did and destroy me and my reputation. This happened yesterday and he's already packed up virtually everything. I can't stop weeping, and I can't believe this is happening. It's horrible and unfair. One last comment from the OP. You're right that I'm bad, but he's also to blame. He never really wanted to fix this, and he used me for months before abandoning me. Despite our past hurts, I want him back. As for his girl, I don't think she'll be a good fit for him. Update 3. I received divorce papers today. This feels like a nightmare. I keep telling myself it's not real and I'll wake up. My husband went out 2 weeks ago apparently to live with another lady, but I continued checking on him, had some acquaintances tell me what was going on, and there appeared to be no other woman at all. I hoped he was simply collecting his thoughts and would get back to me. But today he did it. He ordered me to serve. I don't want to believe he is finished with us. I love him so much and miss him every day. My brother's lies cost me my career, my freedom, and my kids. Now he's famous for saving them from me, but he underestimated me. I returned home from my daughter's dancing recital to find my bedroom safely open. Grandma's whole jewelry collection, her wedding pearls, and Grandpa's military ring, all worth approximately $18,000, were gone. I exhaled and pinched the bridge of my nose. Earlier that morning, my brother Logan had arrived at our house for Sunday brunch. Logan is best described as a 30-year-old man baby. I didn't have a job and spent the entire day convincing my parents to send me more money. Total loser. So, as I stood in my bedroom, staring at the empty safe, I knew who was behind it. When I approached Logan at his apartment an hour later, he was playing Fortnite and wearing Grandpa's ring as if it were a trophy. Insurance will cover it. He smiled as I demanded everything back. Besides, what's some old jewelry compared to your baby brother's life? I tried to explain that Grandma had expressly requested that the pearls be passed down to the oldest granddaughter, but he simply shrugged and said I could buy new ones with all of my fancy nursing money. The scent of jars in his room made me dizzy. So I left and headed to my folks' home. But as soon as the front door opened, my father punched a hole in the drywall. Logan already told us what happened. How dare you go to his apartment and threaten him during recovery? My mother was even more upset, accusing me of being callous for kicking Logan while he was down. They wanted an apology. That's when it struck me. The best payback comes in the form of a smile. So I left and went to work. I spent the next 2 weeks visiting every pawn shop within a 50-mile radius. Some of my grandmother's pieces had already sold, but I tracked out the buyers using social media, knocked on doors, and offered triple what they had paid. I paid $18,000 of my retirement savings to get everything back, since I knew my strategy would be worth it. Our yearly family meal occurred 2 weeks later. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and other 30-something relatives jammed into my parents' home. I waited until everyone was seated before tapping my fork on the champagne glass. Logan, I stated, making sure every family could hear. Since you accidentally stole all of Grandma's jewelry out of my safe and pawned it off, I decided to get them all back just for you. Here's everything, professionally cleaned and restored. The silence was terrible. Logan's face turned from white to deep red, but he couldn't explode. Not with Aunt Diane sharply questioning why I had to rescue family items from pawn shops and Uncle Rob grumbling about addiction and thievery. Life was sweet. But on the way home, I discovered something. I probably shouldn't allow my petty behavior interfere with my ability to be a nice sister. So the next morning, driven by guilt, I drove him to the top rehab facility in the state and paid $30,000 for a 90-day program that included equine therapy, private rooms, and actual medical supervision. And I went every Sunday, driving 3 hours each way. Unfortunately, the counselors couldn't stop praising me. And the more praise I received, the more Logan despised me. But I still believed that rehab would benefit him. And when he was released after 90 days, he was different, but not in a good way. He would drive by my house at weird times. I'd get glances of his automobile. He somehow knew when I'd be at work and when I'd pick up my daughter. But I wasn't concerned because he'd never hurt my kid before and didn't seem likely to do so again. 3 weeks later, it was time for Sophie's school spring musical. I was assisting her with her seatbelt when the world erupted in spotlights and sirens. 20 officers, guns drawn. Hands where we can see them. Step away from the vehicle. Sophie began screaming. They forced me to the ground on the tarmac while my 6-year-old watched her mother, whom she believed could move the ends of the earth, face down next to the car. The drug dogs went straight to my trunk, uncovered a concealed compartment I had no idea existed, and took out 3 small baggies. My kid screamed, "Mommy, what's happening to Mommy?" as I lay there with gravel grinding into my cheek. And that's when I noticed Logan waiting in his car at the far edge of the parking lot, just watching to make sure his anonymous tip paid off exactly as planned. My hands were dragged behind my back, and cold metal cut into my wrists as the shackles clicked shut. The officer's knee pressed harder into my spine, crushing me more into the asphalt. Sophie's shouts became frenzied, and the words from Tomorrow, her musical solo, poured out between sobs. Her red sequined Annie costume caught every police light, transforming my kid into a gleaming beacon of horror. Noah vomited up. I heard him retching in the back seat, choking on his own anxiety. My 9-year-old son, who had been so delighted to see his sister perform, now saw his mother face down on the pavement surrounded by armed officers. They helped me get to my feet. Through the pandemonium, I locked eyes with Logan once more. He lifted his phone to record everything. Then he started his car and drove off. Mission completed. Sophie's muted weeping and Noah's unanswered inquiries dominated the ride to the station. Child services met us there, and 2 people with clipboards escorted my children away while I was processed. Sophie reached for me, singing broken parts of Tomorrow as a prayer. I knew the desk sergeant Tom Morrison right away at the time of booking. He was 2 years ahead of Trent in high school. We played football together. His expression sank as he saw me. "Claire?" He kept his voice low and professional, but I could see he was disappointed. "Your uncle's going to be heartbroken." My uncle, the sheriff, had been very happy when I became a nurse, boasting about having one excellent apple in the family tree. Tom examined my fingerprints with apparent hesitation, talking just loud enough for me to hear. They gave me 1 phone call. My parents' landline rang 4 times before switching to their outdated answering system, with Dad's gruff voice prompting callers to leave a message. I grabbed the receiver with shaky fingers. "Mom, Dad, it's Claire. I've been arrested. It's not true. None of it's true. Logan planted substances in my car. Please, I need you to get the kids from child services. Please answer, please." The machine cut me off mid-plea. They tossed me in alongside 2 hammered drivers and a woman who had hit her partner with a frying pan. When they heard my allegations of possession with intent to distribute in a school zone, the atmosphere changed. The hammered drivers scooted off. The domestic abuser scoffed. Substance dealer picking up kids at school. Real classy. I sat on the metal seat, knees drawn to my chest, reliving each moment. How long had the concealed compartment been there? When did Logan install it? during one of his drive-bys while I was working. Sophie's principal came to the station 2 hours later, but he was unhelpful. Mrs. Henderson's expression was stoned as she spoke with the officers, gesticulating angrily. I captured bits through the strengthened glass. Banned from school property. Pending investigation. Safety of other children. Even if I made bail, I would be unable to pick up my own children from school. Could not attend parent-teacher conferences. Sophie couldn't be seen in another play. My court-appointed lawyer arrived at midnight, fresh out of law school, his suit too big, his hands shakier than mine as he fumbled with his briefcase. He laid out papers, pointing to statistics that made my stomach plummet. The amount they found with the hidden compartment, that puts you in trafficking weight. Mandatory minimums. We're talking decades, not years. His voice cracked over decades. This child, who should be concerned about student loans, was outlining how I might not see freedom until Sophie was older than me. But I didn't know about the compartment. I didn't put anything there. He adjusted his glasses with a nervous twitch. Doesn't matter. It's your car. Possession is possession. And in a school zone, the judge won't have discretion, even if he wanted to. Arraignment occurred at 3 a.m. They escorted me into a courtroom that smelled like stale coffee and misery. The gallery was mostly empty, with the exception of the back row. Logan sat there, phone out, recording again, making sure he caught every bit of my demise. The judge, a strict woman with silver hair, read the charges. Possession with the intent to distribute. School zone improvements. Child endangerment. Every word is another nail in my coffin. When she was released on bail, my lawyer's arguments fell flat. Given the defendant's access to minor children and the location of the arrest, I'm denying bail. Defendant poses a risk to the community, particularly minor children. The gavel crashed down like thunder. Back at the county jail, the medical intake nurse went over her checklist, which included emergency contacts, medical problems, and current prescriptions. I had no choice when she requested that someone notify her about my children. Logan Williams. He's their uncle. She looked up, noticing the irony in my voice. The same Logan Williams listed as the reporting party? I nodded. She made a note, and her demeanor softened slightly. She has previously witnessed a family using the system as a weapon. However, simply witnessing it did not give her the ability to do anything about it. They sent me to a cell alongside Tamara, a 50-something lady with a weathered face who is serving a 6-month sentence for producing meth. She looked at me, still dressed for Sophie's performance, and shook her head. First time? I nodded. What did they get you for? I spoke about the concealed compartment. I'd never seen these compounds before. My brother had been stalking me. Tamara listened and then laughed cruelly. Hidden compartment you didn't know about. Classic plant job. Your brother's either smart or had help. Probably both. She described how it worked. Install the compartment while the target is not there, load it, and provide an anonymous tip on suspicious activities. Cops discover the drugs, and you're suddenly staring at decades while the true perpetrator plays victim. Seen it a dozen times. Ex-husbands, business partners, family members. System don't care who put it there. They care who owns the car. My first video visitation came the next morning, allowing me to view my children through a screen for 15 minutes. However, when the connection was established, Sophie and Noah were not alone. My parents sat behind them. Logan follows behind my parents, hovering, watching, making certain I noticed him. Mom talked first. Claire, honey, maybe this is for the best. Maybe jail will help you get clean. I'm not on substances, Mom. I've never. Denial is part of addiction. She interrupted me. The counselors at Logan's rehab warned us about this. Logan leaned forward just enough that I could see his mouth. He said 2 words. I told you. Sophie had not talked since her arrest, my mother explained, only saying tomorrow, on repeat. Noah has begun peeing the bed again. They were staying with my folks temporarily while things were sorted out. Sophie reached for the screen at the end of the call, tears running down her cheeks as she refused to remove her Annie costume. That afternoon, a security from my hospital presented a notice of suspension without pay. effective immediately. My contract's morals provision made it plain that any arrest for substance-related offenses would result in automatic suspension pending investigation. No paycheck, no health insurance. There is no way to pay for a legitimate lawyer. I did the arithmetic on the cell wall using a pencil stub for the mortgage payment due in 2 weeks. Following that, you will have to pay for your car, utilities. Sophie takes dance classes, Noah's baseball league. Everything I had constructed crumbled as I sat in an orange jumpsuit. The nursing board will be notified within 72 hours. Standard procedure for substance-related arrests. My license would be reviewed after 10 years of schooling, clinicals, and continuous education. Even if I overcome the charges, the review might take years. Years would pass while I was unable to work in my career. 3 days later, Child Welfare Services arrived. A tired-looking woman with gentle eyes delivered awful news. Logan and your parents have filed for emergency custody. Given your current incarceration and the nature of the charges, the court is inclined to grant temporary custody to family members. Your brother has been especially proactive in ensuring the children's stability. Proactive. That's what they called it when someone shattered your life and then offered to pick up the pieces. He's an addict, I informed her. Check his record. Multiple arrests. Failed rehabs. She flipped through her papers. Mr. Williams provided documentation of successful completion of a 90-day program. He's been clean for 4 months. Regular attendance at NA meetings. Employed full-time. Employed. Since when? Additionally, your parents are providing support. 2-parent household. Stable income. Clean background checks. I'm sorry, but from the court's perspective, she did not need to finish. According to the court, I was a drug dealer who put children in danger. Logan was a recovering addict making positive adjustments. The truth was immaterial. Renee, my dearest friend, came to visit that weekend. She had been crying. I could see it in her watery eyes and the smudged mascara she had attempted to repair in the parking lot. David says, I can't. He doesn't want me associating with. She couldn't finish, but she did hand me a folded paper. Logan is coming around. Asking about your computer passwords. Bank accounts. I altered everything I could think of. The memo listed every account she had helped me secure, including email, banking, social media, and even my Netflix password. At the bottom she wrote, he's using your kids to get people to talk. Says he needs access to help them. Don't trust anyone. The second blow came from the jail's law library computer, which I had access to for an hour. My arrest had made local news. A local nurse was detained during a school drug bust. The piece featured my mugshot, which showed empty eyes, matted hair, and the remaining remains of my performance makeup smeared across my face. The commentary section was savage. Parents from Sophie's school have asked me to keep away from their children. People I had treated in the hospital expressed shock and disappointment. And there, with his real name and profile image, Logan, praying for my sister's recovery and healing. Addiction is a disease. Our family won't give up on her. 47 likes. Dozens of supportive responses. He had turned my demise into his redemption story. My public defender departed the following week. I was selected to a high-profile federal lawsuit. His replacement had not even reviewed my file. She called me Nicole throughout the meeting, sifting through documents with confused fury. So, you're saying someone planted these substances? Yes, my brother. He installed a hidden compartment. Do you have proof? Receipts? Video footage? Witnesses? I had nothing. Just the word of a suspected drug dealer against a recovering addict who bravely stepped up to care for frightened children. Logan's CPS video interview with my children went just as planned. Sophie, persuaded and bewildered, informed the investigator that Mommy hides items in the car. When asked what kind of things, she shut down and went back to her tomorrow refrain. But the harm had been done. Noah attempted to help. I told them about Uncle Logan's visit at night, coming by when I wasn't at home. But the investigator concentrated on Sophie's comments, meticulously documenting them while disregarding Noah's as inconsistent with the timetable. I started exchanging commissary for legal advice from a lady serving a 5-year sentence for fraud. She was a paralegal before being arrested. I knew the system inside and out. Her assessment was dismal. Family court moves fast. Faster than criminal court. Your brother could have permanent custody before your trial even starts, and once they have custody for 6 months, it becomes the status quo. Judges don't like disrupting the status quo. That night, I lay awake, calculating the time. How long before something temporary turned permanent? How long till my children forget how it felt to have me tuck them in? How long until Logan's version of events became the truth? The answer arrived 2 weeks later, when my parents paid me a visit. They brought Logan's legal documents, which he had prepared with his new girlfriend, Brielle, a paralegal student. Just temporary guardianship, my mother informed me. For the children's stability, you understand. Behind her, my father stood still, his jaw set. He'd turned 10 in 2 weeks. When I refused to sign, his fist tightened, as if he intended to punch another wall. Be reasonable, Claire. The kids need stability. They need normal, not a mother in jail. I didn't do this, Dad. You know me. You know I would never. I thought I knew you, he interjected. But the daughter I raised wouldn't have substances in her car. Wouldn't get arrested at her child's school. Wouldn't put her babies through this trauma. They left the papers. Temporary guardianship until the situation was settled. But I knew better. Nothing is permanent when you're fighting the system from within a jail. That night, the local Facebook moms group began posting my mugshot. Warning, substance dealer nurse. Keep our schools safe, protect our children. Each adds another nail to my reputation's coffin. Renee texted me screenshots until her husband found out and forced her to block me. But it was Logan's words that broke me. As a recovering addict, I know how hard it is to admit you need help. I'm praying my sister finds the strength to choose recovery. Her children deserve a healthy mother. Break the cycle. Recovery is possible. 134 likes, 62 shares. My destruction had become his platform. My mortgage company sent me another notice the next morning. The automated payment had failed. My accounts were frozen as a result of the asset investigation. Missed payment triggered acceleration clause activation. 30 days to pay in full or face foreclosure. Logan shared Instagram stories from my house that afternoon. Maintaining Sissy's place for when she gets better. Family. Hope. He was in my kitchen, using my dishes, sitting on my couch and moving his belongings box by box as I sat in a cage. During the journey to family court, I finally realized the gravity of my predicament. The deputies conversing in the front seat had no idea I could hear them. Sheriff's taking it hard. That's his niece, the good one, right? The nurse? Yeah. Always said she was the only one who made something of herself. Now this Logan seems to be doing better though. Saw him at the grocery store with those kids. Real sweet with them. My uncle, the sheriff, could have assisted, investigated, or at least listened. But family was family, and I had become the family's source of disgrace. A cautionary tale. The good one has gone rotten. In family court, I arrived via video connection in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed to a table, hair unwashed, no makeup, and appearing every bit the substance dealer they suspected I was. Logan sat in the gallery, pristine button-down shirt and hands folded, the epitome of responsible rehabilitation. His lawyer, not his lover, but a genuine attorney he could afford, painted a stunning picture. A recovering addict. 4 months clean, working full-time, providing a stable environment for traumatized youngsters. My parents testified on his behalf. Sophie's head teacher also wrote a letter supporting his custody petition. The judge's ruling was fast. Logan and my parents have temporary custody. If and when I am released, I will have supervised visits. Best interests of the children. I noticed my brother's expression when the judge talked. No smirking. There is no gloating, only calm satisfaction. He had triumphed not by violence or intimidation, but through patience and forethought. He had turned my own goodness against me. My determination to assist him in his recovery. My trust that he would never harm my children. My conviction that family mattered. As they escorted me back to my cell, I grasped the truth. Logan had not merely taken my grandmother's valuables. He had stolen my entire life. Everyone congratulated him for doing it so precisely. The system had performed just as he expected. Good sister with no record versus recovering addict making positive improvements. The story wrote itself. All he had to do was reverse our roles, and I was now the antagonist in my own story. That night, Tamara discovered me sobbing on my bunk. She did not offer consolation. Incarceration does not operate that way. But she did offer the truth. First rule of frame jobs, she explained. The best ones make the victim look guilty of exactly what they'd never do. Is there a nurse with no substance? Abuse history? Plant substances? Good mother? Make her appear dangerous to children. Strong woman? Put her in a cage where strength isn't important. She was correct. Logan had twisted all of my strengths against me. My pristine record made the arrest even more startling. My good reputation added to the drama of the fall. My affection for my children made the separation much more painful. Tamara asked, "What are you going to do about it? You may either sit here and cry or start fighting. In any case, your children are growing up without you. Clock is ticking." I rubbed my face across the rough pillowcase. She was correct. The clock was ticking. Logan's position became stronger with each day I was here. Another day my children adjusted to life without me. Another day my truth got less convincing. I recalled Sophie refusing to take off her Annie outfit and singing about tomorrow. Regarding Noah's bedwetting, Uncle Logan insisted on a nighttime visit. About my parents' decision to believe the comfortable falsehood over the difficult truth. Most of all, I imagined Logan sitting in my home, raising my children, and playing the hero in a novel in which I was the villain. He had totally won this round, and everyone congratulated him. Tamara was correct about something else too. The time was ticking for him as well. Because addicts do not stay clean when they have everything they want. They keep clean while they are battling for something. Logan had just won all he had fought for. The counselors in rehab had warned about this, but not in the way my mother expected. They discussed environmental triggers, about the dangers of achieving too much success too quickly, about the fine line between recovery and relapse. I knew my brother. I knew him better than anyone. He was not using it when he planted those substances. He'd been overly cautious, too precise. But today, with my house, my children, and my parents' full trust with no one observing, suspecting, or holding him accountable, the time was ticking for both of us. The only question was, which timer would run out first? His sobriety or my freedom? Logan began his rehab blog the following Monday. Breaking the Cycle launched with a photo of him hugging Sophie and Noah on my parents' front porch. The first piece described his path from addiction to being a guardian angel for his nibblings, a term that made me physically nauseous. Within hours, sympathetic responses flooded in. Mothers admired his bravery. His tale was circulated around recovery groups. Someone launched a GoFundMe page to cover his legal fees and protect the children. Tamara noticed me continuously refreshing the page while on the computer. She finally grasped my wrist, forcing me to look into her worn face. Her cousin worked at the impound company that towed my automobile. For $200 in commissary, she told me, he could check the hidden compartment for fingerprints, tool marks, anything the police might have missed. I eagerly agreed, exchanging my phone privileges for ramen noodles and coffee packs. The video visitation that week shattered what little self-control I had. Logan positioned himself just out of the camera's view, but I could see his hand on Sophie's shoulder. My daughter's gaze shifted between the screen and something off camera as she questioned why I had brought terrible medication to her play. The words sounded stilted, rehearsed. Noah sat quietly, arms folded, unwilling to look at the TV at all. Sophie put her small palm against the monitor after 15 minutes, and I noticed Logan's fingers tighten on her shoulder. My new situation became clear during a meeting with my public defender. She realized that all of my jail calls were recorded as routine procedure. Logan's girlfriend Brielle had made a records request as part of her paralegal studies. Logan now had access to every chat I had about the setup, every strategy conference with my lawyer, and every desperate declaration of innocence. My defender proposed that we change our approach. So what was the point? He knew everything. Tamara's cousin responded 3 days later. The secret compartment revealed clear tool marks indicating recent installation scratches in the metal and fresh drill shavings, although the authorities did not photograph those details during their initial examination. Worse, many investigators polluted the scene, rendering any evidence legally suspect. Nonetheless, it served as confirmation that the compartment was not factory placed. Someone had modified my automobile. The family court imposed fresh instructions that felt like retribution disguised as process. Before any visits could resume, I had to finish parenting classes and substance abuse counseling. Is there a catch? Jail only provided these services to sentenced offenders, not pretrial detainees. I was imprisoned in a bureaucratic nightmare, unable to meet obligations that were impossible to accomplish in my existing position. Renee delivered the next blow, putting her marriage at jeopardy by returning. Logan had accessed Sophie's college fund as her temporary guardian. $5,000 was withdrawn for trauma treatment with a friend of Brielle's who claimed to be a life coach, but had no credentials. Legal? Yes. Devastating? Absolutely. I had saved that money since Sophie was born. $20 here, $50 there. She's saving for her future one deposit at a time. The local news broadcast a positive story about rehabilitation and redemption. Logan was at a charity 5K, sporting a personalized shirt with my children's faces and the words "running for their future" across the back. The reporter applauded his commitment to breaking the cycle of addiction. Sophie and Noah cheered my brother on as he crossed the finish line, which I watched on the dayroom screen. Other convicts changed channels, but the harm had been done. My third public defender discovered a difference in the prosecutor's case. The substance weight did not match the trafficking allegations. It was barely over the possession limit. She advised pleading down to simple possession. Time served. Probation. However, any substance-related conviction meant that I would lose my nursing license permanently. It meant Logan remained in detention. It entailed admitting to something I did not do. Mandatory group therapy became a kind of torture, sitting in a circle alongside true addicts, listening to their stories while remaining innocent. Every time I spoke, the counselor made notes and recorded denial and lack of accountability in a file that would follow me through the system. Truth sounded just like falsehoods in that room. Every claim of innocence was only another indication of addiction. Logan took the kids for what he called a closure visit. Sophie wore clothes I didn't recognize, including designer labels I'd never purchase. Both children addressed Brielle as Miss Brielle with real fondness. She'd braided Sophie's hair in a way I'd attempted but failed to achieve. Noah showed me his new baseball glove, which was made of premium leather and smelt like privilege. They discussed their new routines, Brielle's cooking, and trips I'd always promised but couldn't afford. My kids were becoming strangers. Logan made certain I saw every excruciating detail. My father paid a visit alone the next week. He appeared shattered and old beyond his years. He admitted knowing Logan was using again, finding needles in the bathroom, and discovered money stolen from his wallet. But Logan was functional, he reasoned. At least the children had stability. He begged me to accept a plea deal. Stop fighting what everyone already believes. The man who had punched through walls to defend me now urged me to submit. Even my commissary account became a war. Renee's deposited funds mysteriously disappeared. Logan had marked himself as an approved visitor and family member, allowing him access to my account. He had systematically emptied everything, leaving me unable to purchase basic hygiene supplies. The jail responded with a shrug. Family members had these rights. The foreclosure letter came as a final insult. Logan was interviewed by local TV at the sale of my house about his efforts to save the family home despite his sister's choices. He stood on my front lawn, appearing appropriately sad, telling how addiction has devastated families. Behind him, I could see my rose bushes wilting due to carelessness. Kara, a former colleague, risked her career to visit with distressing news. Logan was employed by the hospital to serve as a night custodian. He now had access to medical records, controlled substance disposal facilities, and the halls where I had spent my whole career. She had spotted him asking questions about ketamine disposal processes, anesthesia cart codes. The ramifications horrified both of us. Tamara revealed that she had filmed Logan buying from her dealer 6 weeks prior to my arrest. The footage was crisp, including his face, voice, and transaction. However, it also revealed Tamara's dealings, rendering it legally inadmissible. The evidence that may set me free would cage her. She offered it nevertheless, knowing what it could cost her. I couldn't accept that sacrifice. A private investigator hired by Renee's husband discovered something significant. Logan had been calling in medicines under my nursing license number. The DEA database revealed unusual patterns of controlled medications prescribed to people I had never treated. Identity theft, on top of everything else. However, revealing it risked launching a federal probe that may last years. My uncle paid me a visit after hours, alone. He appeared older, his shoulders hunched with guilt. He suspected Logan from the start, but was unable to probe his family. Now, he offered to pay for a private attorney provided I agreed to leave town following a swift acquittal. To save our reputation, the good apple of the family tree would have to perish. I agreed. What options did I have? Sophie's teacher phoned CPS, raising concerns that made my heart race. During art class, my daughter drew rough images of Uncle Logan's secret box in Mommy's car. However, the investigator rejected these as traumatic responses. Children use art to process tough emotions. Adults who thought they knew better dismissed the truth from the mouths of children. The private attorney my uncle hired provided both optimism and harsh reality. Logan's public sympathy campaign tainted the jury pool. Everyone has heard the story about the courageous recovering addict who saved his sister's children. She advised pursuing a bench trial before a judge with discretion over mandated minimums. It meant putting my fate in the hands of just one person rather than 12. I violated ethical boundaries I never imagined I would. During the literacy program, I became friends with the coordinator, whose daughter attended Sophie's class. Technically, this violated the no-contact order, but I needed information on my children. Sophie had completely ceased singing, I discovered from her. No more tomorrow. Nothing more. The music had died with her mother's arrest. During transportation for attorney meetings, I recognized the bailiff. Jordan Wells was Logan's dealer in high school. Courthouse security has been clean and operational for the past decade. He pulled me aside in the holding room and whispered that Logan had attempted to buy from him last month. Logan knew his background. He knew his triggers. I attempted to exploit them. Jordan couldn't testify because it would jeopardize his career, but he wanted me to know the facts. The attorney subpoenaed pharmaceutical data, which revealed a damning picture. Logan had filled prescriptions with my DEA number the week before my arrest, leaving a paper trail of identity theft. However, the prosecutor maintained that this was different from the drug accusations, relevant to motive, but not proof that evidence was planted. The system separated crimes just as it segmented people's lives. Brielle's pregnancy announcement amid family court proceedings seemed like a deliberate blow. She stood before the judge, palm on her, still flat stomach, discussing establishing a stable two-parent home for all of the children. Logan wiped away tears, which could have been genuine. The judge prolonged interim custody, impressed by the heartfelt demonstration of family planning. Sophie's 6th birthday passed me by while I was in jail. Logan live-streamed the celebration at Chuck E. Cheese, something I had never been able to afford. Sophie blew out the candles without looking at the camera. Her face was a mask of forced delight. The other parents grinned and clapped, undoubtedly pleased that the substance dealer mother wasn't around to disrupt the festivities. Noah sat in a corner, arms folded, unwilling to engage. The job release program provided cruel hope. I could leave jail at night to clean offices and earn money for my legal bills. The site is my former hospital. The universe's nasty joke meant I'd be mopping floors in the pediatric hospital where I'd previously rescued lives, scrubbing toilets in the break room where co-workers had given me a baby shower for Noah. My supervisor was Sophie's school parent who regarded me as if I were something scraped off her shoe. She assigned me the harshest jobs. I was made to clean the same spots repeatedly, always found fault. One night, she made me clean the trauma bay, where I had once led a code that saved a child's life. The plaque on the wall still acknowledged the nursing staff. My name had been taped. Kara gave me notes during my shifts, risking everything to keep me informed. Logan had inquired about restricted substance disposal, specifically ketamine and fentanyl. He had befriended nurses on the night shift, exploiting his recovery tale to get sympathy and access. The trend was evident. He was moving beyond medications. Something more ambitious is being planned. The choice that tormented me occurred on a Thursday night. During my shift, I spotted Logan in a restricted area, pocketing expired drugs from the garbage bin. Security cameras would have captured him. However, reporting it risked breaking my job release restrictions. Protecting future victims or assisting my children is a hard choice. I went away, hating myself with every step. Noah's counselor submitted a report, which should have altered everything. My son insisted repeatedly that Uncle Logan had placed something in Mommy's car, offering consistent information about timing and location. Logan, however, presented a therapist's statement from Brielle's life coach buddy, claiming that Noah was experiencing false memories as a result of trauma. A 9-year-old's truth is buried beneath professional-sounding lies. My substance test turned out positive for a chemical I'd never heard of. The amounts were consistent with recent consumption rather than long-term use. Tamara found it out first. Logan has ties in the correctional kitchen via Brielle's network. He had been dosing my food to ensure that I would fail any tests, adding to the evidence of my addiction. Even in jail, I was not immune from his grasp. The private investigator discovered Logan's practice run. Logan's expelled college roommate currently lives under a bridge in Portland. Unreachable. Unverifiable. However, this is part of a clearly defined pattern. This was not his first frame job. It was simply his most sophisticated. However, trends were not proof, and the roommate was unable to testify from wherever his addiction had led him. The judge accelerated my trial date, citing public interest and children's well-being. Instead of 2 months, you get 2 weeks to prepare. My attorney hurried to arrange witnesses, gather evidence, and create a defense against unfounded charges. The quickness that previously aided defendants now worked against me. Logan had also planned for this. During a discussion with my attorney, his true aim became clear. A petition for adoption was found hidden among family court records. If I remained incarcerated for a year, abandonment rules took effect. Logan was not simply stealing temporary custody. He intended to eliminate me as their mother altogether. The documents had previously been drawn up, waiting for time to pass. The twisted logic developed from his blog posts. Logan honestly believed he was shielding my children from the addiction genes, preventing them from being like him or me. In his twisted mind, he convinced himself that destroying me was an act of love, stopping the cycle by breaking me. What is the scariest part? His cries during court appearances were genuine. I took a desperate decision that crossed every ethical line I had remaining. We agreed to check Logan's flat during Sophie's school recital using Tamara's connections. Her crew discovered his stash. Not only drugs, but more dangerous substances, enough to keep him away for years. But we couldn't report it unless we admitted to breaking and entering. Evidence that could have saved me will harm me in a different way. To build an alibi for the apartment hunt, I had to miss my video conversation with the kids. Sophie waited by the computer for 2 hours. According to the guard who eventually unplugged the unused session, she had prepared a song to sing for me. Not tomorrow, but something new from school. I sacrificed potential evidence for unmistakable pain. The inquiry turned up receipts for the compartment installation in my car. Logan recognized the business owner's name. He was Logan's previous dealer, someone who would do anything for the proper price. But he refused to testify without immunity, and the prosecutor was not interested in deals that complicated their straightforward case. Substance dealer mother was a simpler narrative than sophisticated frame job. Character witnesses formed their own battlefield. 3 hospital colleagues agreed to speak on my professional reputation, diligence, and complete lack of a drug background. But the 4th backed out after Logan hinted he was aware of her previous prescription discrepancy, which she had only revealed to me during a vulnerable moment. He had weaponized every trust I had ever established. The judge ordered hair follicle tests for all parties involved in the custody issue. The results corroborated what I already knew. I showed no evidence of long-term substance abuse. However, the judge observed that single use was still prohibited. That nice individuals can make awful decisions. Legal innocence and true innocence were not the same thing, and I was painfully discovering the difference. My attorney requested a favor from a DEA contact who confirmed that the prescription fraud pattern matched Logan's time frame exactly. However, testifying would trigger a government probe that may last years, during which my children would grow up without me. Help that was unable to help. The truth couldn't be spoken. The system's brutal math. Off the record, the DEA contact said something scary. Logan's fake prescriptions were given to elderly hospice patients, who died before anybody noticed. He'd been exploiting dead people's identities for months, effectively making him a serial killer of convenience. However, establishing it required resources that I did not have, and relationships that I could not create while in jail. Sophie has a breakdown during her forensic interview. She said that Uncle Logan had shown her the box in Mommy's car before the play. For a minute, the truth shone through. She instantly recanted, claiming she made it up for attention. The investigator noted both statements, but emphasized the recantation. Even my daughter's honesty had been turned into a lie. The compartment installer spoke up following his own incarceration on other offenses. He admitted Logan paid cash for the installation a week before my arrest and provided receipts and extensive testimony. But his collaboration came with a price. He had to testify about all of his unlawful alterations, which implicated dozens of other clients who now wanted me dead for revealing their secrets. I made the most difficult decision of my life. During a strategy discussion with my attorney, I agreed to speak about discovering Logan stealing from the hospital. I knew it violated my work release conditions. Truth had become more vital than strategy. If I had to go down, I'd do so with a fight, telling the jury everything I knew. Logan went to jail the night before the trial. He presented a letter of forgiveness and power of attorney documents. He promised to halt the adoption pursuit if I accepted a plea deal. 18 months, out of 12 with good behavior. His hands shook as he pushed the papers into the slot. The security camera clearly revealed his dilated pupils and tremble in his fingers. He started using heavily again, but no one noticed the apparent indicators. I looked him in the eyes and spoke honestly to the cameras. I would rather lose my children forever as an innocent woman than keep them through a lie. His face crumbled, not with victory, but rather with real confusion. He never dreamed I would not break, would not fold. He refused to follow the simple way that verified his narrative. The prosecutor began the trial by presenting me as a nurse who used her medical skills to steal substances. Logan sat immediately behind the prosecutor's table, dressed in a suit I knew from my father's closet, and played the victim advocate role perfectly. The gallery was divided down the middle. My supporters on the left. Logan's army of rehabilitation activists and worried parents are on the right. Both of us displayed our war scars. I'd shed 30 pounds. I hadn't noticed any gray in my hair previously. Logan had gained weight. He developed a tremor and attempted to hide it by clasping his hands. We were destroying each other in slow motion, and everyone seemed to enjoy it. The installer testified that Logan expressly requested an undetectable chamber to store his girlfriend's birthday present. The falsehood was so clear that several jurors shifted uneasily, yet obvious lying did not constitute proof beyond reasonable doubt. Then came the bailiff, Jordan Wells, whom I recognized. He defied courtroom protocol by standing up in the gallery to speak without being summoned. He couldn't stay silent any longer, he said. Logan attempted to drag him back down after 10 years of sobriety. The judge threatened contempt, but Jordan persisted. Logan was familiar with every dealer in town, as well as their weaknesses and triggers. He was a predator disguised as prey. The judge ordered hair follicle tests for all parties involved in the family court case, including Logan. His stress was obvious in his sweating, squirming, and unexpected need for a restroom break. He was fully aware that the test would reveal everything. However, the criminal trial would conclude before the data were available. Hospital security footage was validated and admitted as evidence. It demonstrated Logan entering forbidden locations throughout my shifts, creating opportunities for prescription theft. The prosecutor agreed that his evidence was circumstantial but convincing. Patterns formed like a picture from scattered pixels. Access, opportunity, purpose, and method all contributed to Logan's testimony. He took the stand and broke down entirely, confessing to the prescription theft. However, he swore he had never planted any chemicals. His cries appeared sincere as he spoke about attempting to save me from myself. "We are safeguarding the children from our family curse." He was an addict, but not a monster, he claimed. I nearly believed him. During jury deliberation, the prosecutor made one final offer. Drop all charges if I agree to supervised visitation exclusively. No admission of guilt, but acceptance of the consequences. My attorney encouraged me to take it. Juries were unpredictable, and we had provided reasonable doubt but not assurance. I refused. My children deserve a mother who fought for the truth until the very end. Either I'd walk out feeling vindicated, or I'd go to prison knowing I had never compromised. The jury returned after a 2-hour deliberation. The verdict was split, just as my life had. Not guilty of trafficking. The evidence was too flimsy. The compartment seemed strange, but guilty of possession, since the narcotics were in my car, and constructive possession constituted possession. Time served, plus 2 years probation. A partial win that felt like defeat. The family court proceeded promptly. Logan's custody was revoked after he failed a drug test and admitted prescription stealing. But the kids went to my parents, not me. The judge referred to my criminal record, my need to rebuild, and the children's need for stability. No one won cleanly. I moved in with Renee, whose husband abandoned her for supporting me. We rebuilt together 2 ladies whose devotion to the truth had cost them everything. My nursing license was suspended pending review, which could take years. I found employment as a medical clerk, processing paperwork where I had previously saved lives. Supervised Sunday visits became my lifeline. Sophie spoke again but shuddered at the sirens. Noah refused to visit Logan at all, using wrath as armor. My mother, now in a wheelchair after a stroke, continued to protect Logan from her assisted living home. We were all so proud of our family tree, but it was nothing more than broken branches. 6 months later, I sat in another courtroom for the final custody proceeding. Logan was back in rehab, this time on court order. His partner Brielle had left him when the baby tested positive for drugs at birth. The family court judge evaluated everything: my compliance, employment stability, clean substance testing, and finished parenting classes. I have dual custody with my parents. Transitions are supervised. Substance testing for all parties. Sophie's college fund was returned through a court judgment. It wasn't the life I had planned before, but it was something. Logan would be granted supervised visits once he completed therapy again. Every day on my way to work, I passed past my foreclosed house. New family, new rose plants. There's new life inside those walls. Sometimes I parked across the street, recalling birthday celebrations and bedtime stories, Christmas mornings and homework conflicts. The GPS still called it home. Sophie once asked me if I hated Uncle Logan. I told her the truth. I despised what he did, but I couldn't hate him. He was unwell in ways that medicine could not cure, broken in areas where love couldn't go. We were all attempting to survive our family curse in our own unique ways. I last saw him at the courthouse, signing documents to garnish his wages for child support. He appeared smaller, deflated, like a balloon slowly losing air. He questioned if I thought he would ever improve. I did not have an answer. Some cycles break you before you can break them. But every Sunday I picked up my children during our given time. We visited parks, museums, and other places that did not remind us of anything we had previously experienced. Sophie began singing again. Not tomorrow, but new music. Happy ones. Noah entered the minor league with a used glove that smelled of optimism rather than privilege.